Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio. Billy Liucci here on TexAgs Radio. Olin Buchanan.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
Very thankful for the 12th man. They've won us games.
Been in college baseball for a while now, but I've never experienced anything like 12th man.
That's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
Our skill set worked great together. Like, he was more speed and I was more power, and then we put together, it was like thunder and lightning, you know.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
All right, we are in TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Olin Buchanan, Heisman Trophy voter. I got a question for you. Not about the Heisman Trophy.
Okay, ask.
Just more, and I wasn't even planning on talking about this, but I was listening to some podcasts on the way in. It just got me thinking, why do you think people make erroneous reports? Like, what's the thrill to say, you know what, Jackson Dart's done for the year? Sources say, there was a report out on social media yesterday about Jackson Dart being done. Apparently it's not true. Lane Kiffin's son posted about it, and he was fine, or whatever he posted. But why do you think people do that? And, like, we're just, oh, look at, I'm going to get this fan base riled up.
Draw attention to themselves. Why does somebody say A&M's going to the Big Ten?
Right.
You know, draw attention to themselves, maybe their site, whatever.
But it's funny,
clicks.
That particular thing, I don't even address it on the show. I think one time I was like, it's not true. Move on. Like, but it still, like, lives in the minds of many Aggies.
Yeah. Are you talking about the Big Ten thing?
Big Ten thing, yeah.
I was on a podcast with some guys from Illinois last week, and they were asking me about it. You know, you're like, you know, some guy up in Oklahoma, or, you know, wherever the guy from talking about Dart is, is, you know, in a room, and he probably says to himself, hey, what can I throw out there that'll get people riled up?
Right.
And maybe it'll draw attention to me or my side or whatever. If nothing else, I can get some clicks for the day.
Yep.
And you throw out something. Or maybe somebody's told him, hey, I heard Jackson Dart got hurt. And it might have been, you know, somebody else. And so you run with it without verifying, because there is no real journalism anymore. Or
there's not a lot of it. How about that?
There's not a lot of it.
It's a very slanted
point. Because anybody can do it now.
I'm hearing this, dude. Like that, and then sliced bread.
Right.
People will put it on a message board, and then it becomes real.
Which it should have been that every legitimate journalist, college football writer, and this is why, you know, I've completely lost faith with my profession that I used to love so much, would have looked into it and asked the questions and said, all right, this is bogus. Instead, they just said, yeah. You know, this has been reported, and you're like, so the whole thing with, I didn't hear that about Jackson Dart.
I saw it on social. I mean, again, a few people see it. It shows up on the algorithm, and then I saw SEC Unfiltered say, apparently it's not true. And so I guess my point is, guys, you don't need to do that. Like,
well, you know, there was a guy, you'll remember this, a guy out of Austin, I want to say, how long ago was this? 15 years ago? Mocked up a page, because you can do so much with computers, obviously. He mocked up a page of the Daily Oklahoman and made it look like the then Oklahoma quarterback, Landry Jones, had been arrested for selling drugs.
I remember this. Yeah.
And he was just some dipstick, actually from Nebraska, who was moved down to Austin. I guess he had become a Texas fan or whatever, and thought it'd be funny. And I heard Landry Jones' dad said he was going to sue his pants off, and Landry Jones' dad even wrote into him, said, I have deep pockets. I will, you know. And I'm sure the guy got fired and stuff like that, because people are just too irresponsible and stupid. Social media does that to people.
Hey, let's turn our attention to a little college football talk. And ranking season still here. Saturday Down South at the top 25 quarterbacks in college football. Okay? And I'm just going to ask you where you think Connor would be on the list.
Oh, so he's on the list.
He's on the list of top 25.
Okay.
Which I thought he was going to be on the list. I'll let you say where you think he's going to be, then I'll follow it up.
Okay, just guessing because he hadn't played a whole lot. 21.
Subtract 11 from that, and you'd find your top 10 quarterback, Connor Wigman, according to Saturday Down South.
Well,
I was surprised. And then when you go through the list, you'll be like, whoa, he's ahead of a couple guys that you would have thought just because they've played and some of the national attention.
No, I give those guys credit because I think Connor's probably a top 10 talent, but I just assumed that so many people would just look at his numbers, yada, yada, and find a reason not to put him there. But great.
So then I'll follow up that question because I know you haven't read the list. Who do you think is number one on that list?
Number one on
because
that
I'm going to
list,
tell you this site seems to be enamored with a certain quarterback down the road.
Probably, Quinn Ewers.
Yeah.
I was going to say they're probably going to put the guy from Georgia.
Carson Beck gets a lot of love, but I think he's typically number one, but in this list he's not.
I got to tell you, I don't have a problem with somebody putting Quinn Ewers number one on that list. I really don't.
It does start off a blue chip Texas quarterback who actually lives up to the hype, ? College football has really changed. After a lost decade in Austin, Ewers has arrived with huge expectations on the right schedule to meet them.
Yeah, he's been a productive quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And does he have flaws? Yeah, who doesn't?
I don't see him as the best quarterback in college football.
All right, but who's better?
And that's the question. Because I think there was – I guess the year Bryce Young won the Heisman, we didn't know he was going to be the best quarterback in football entering the season. I'm trying to think. Last year, we didn't think Jaden Daniels was going to be the best quarterback in college football, and he ended up being the best quarterback in college football.
Somebody helped Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
Somebody will emerge, but if someone told me, like we just had that conversation, Quinn Ewers is not the best quarterback in college football, I said, okay.
Who's the best?
I won't argue, but just tell me who the best guy is. And they're probably, if Ewers is off the table, are going to say Carson Beck. And I'm going, okay, all right, if you say so. But then you start going down the list.
I think midway through the season, you can make an argument for number 3 being the best quarterback in college football, Dylan Gabriel. In that offense, I keep thinking
he's
Pac-12.
A talented guy.
He is, but it's not a Pac-12 schedule anymore. So it does change the way I look at Oregon. I do think Oregon's the second best team in the Big Ten. It's interesting. The other day when we were talking about the Big Ten, I talked about Ohio State being 1 and Penn State being 2, and I'm like, wait, there's these Pac-12 schools that joined. What about Oregon? Because I forget to add them.
Yeah.
Would you rather?
And it will be more difficult because if there's ever a question about, and I know they're not going to the SEC, but if there's ever a question about the difference in playing in a conference, I always look at Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Who was
I guess that's my
failure
point,
yeah. Failure may be too harsh, but who was a
not very good.
He was okay.
He had his moments.
He was okay.
Yeah.
Slightly better than competent at Auburn, and he goes to Oregon, and they're saying he should win the Heisman Trophy.
This next guy, number 4 on the list, I would not be surprised if he ends up having the best numbers of the group. Maybe not the best, second best numbers of the group. Jalen Milroe.
Okay.
With Kalen DeBoer, I could absolutely see it.
If he has the same skill set that Michael Penix has,
Right.
and I don't think he does. I don't think he's as accurate with but I think he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
If you
tailor your system for him.
Would you put Milroe over Quinn Ewers? If you were an NFL general manager and your job, your kid's education, your mortgage depended on you making the right choice at quarterback, which one of those guys you drafted?
You're not going to like my answer.
Oh, no,
but I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm taking Jalen Milroe. And here's my reason.
Okay.
I try not to watch Texas football ever. So I haven't seen him enough.
Right.
I've seen him in the Alabama game look really good. I've seen him in the Oklahoma game, obviously. And I've seen him struggle at times, right? I'm not as high on Quinn. I think if he's not 1A, he's 1B based on what he's done. Right?
Based on what he's done.
But I don't watch a lot of him.
I get that.
And that's a bad journalist.
No, well,
but I just don't.
You cover A&M, you're not going to see
it puts
everybody.
me in a bad mood.
I always think it's hilarious when
I don't watch Shedeur Sanders either. I don't.
Right. Well, you see him probably once or twice a year.
I watch some highlights. Okay. Yeah. I watch all the SEC quarterbacks all the time.
Well, when you're watching highlights, you're only seeing the good plays.
Right. Well, sometimes the lowlights too.
Well, if they're showing the highlight of the DB.
Right. But Shedeur Sanders number 5 on this list.
Okay. Well, and again, you know how I feel about the Pac-12 defenses.
Yeah.
Last year, I think everybody in the Pac-12 is good. Cameron Ward's got to be high on that list.
He's going to be on that list. Jackson Dart number 6.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
The guy from Arizona's got to be up there.
Drew Aller, Penn State. Haven't watched him enough.
I've watched him, and I'm not buying Drew Aller. Drew Aller. Do you remember the name Christian Hackenberg?
100%.
He was
Bill
going to be
O'Brien's
the number
guy.
one. Yeah, he sucked.
He was terrible.
But he was 6'4" and 220, and he
looked
played
like
at
a
Penn
quarterback.
State.
Yeah.
And I watched some of Drew Aller at some Penn State last year because I heard all this hype about Drew Aller. I'm like, maybe I just saw the wrong game. You know, maybe I just and I could be unfair because if you judge Connor Wegman on the first half against Auburn, you're not going to be that impressed.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
So maybe I just saw the wrong game.
I know you're going to disagree with number 8 on this list.
Number 8.
DJU.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Pac-12. Went to the Pac-12. He was serviceable at Clemson, where he went against ACC defenses with better talent around him than they're facing, and he was only serviceable. He goes to the Pac-12. He's resurgent. He's great.
All right. And then we're going to go, where's my list? Number 9,
Yeah,
Cam Ward.
I guess,
Pac-12.
I mean, he may be really good, but
this is where the list gets interesting, in my opinion. So Connor's 10.
Yeah, Connor, in my mind, on that list is at least number 9 or 8 because you have to put him ahead of DJ Ugalele.
Right. Oh, you said it well. Sir.
How about that? Just say them fast.
Will Howard at 11.
I watched their game recently against Missouri because I wanted to see that Colin Klein offense against an SEC team. So and Will Howard he's pretty good.
Yeah, he was good.
I didn't come away thinking, man, what a great player.
No, but good. And then at Ohio State.
Yeah, he's gonna have better talent around him than
Jalen Daniels, number 12. Haven't watched enough of him. I know he's good. I know he got
Kansas,
hurt last year. Yeah.
Yeah, if he's healthy. The one time I saw him, I was really impressed with him.
Yeah. Number 13, Preston Stone, SMU quarterback.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. All right. 14, Riley Leonard.
Yeah, you know what? Just off the top of my head, I'm telling you.
I'd put Riley higher on that list.
I have him on the top 10 if he's healthy.
Yeah, he's higher than DJU.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. 15, Grayson McCall, NC State.
NC State. Isn't he transferring from like Liberty or someplace like that? I don't know where he's transferring from.
He transferred from the Sun Belt.
Charles.
Jamie Chadwell's departure. Yep. There you go.
Yeah, from what I remember of him, and again, we don't get to see him all the time, but I remember that guy's pretty good.
And if you remember, he's the reason Coastal Carolina was in the conversation for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm going to continue on to 16. This is a little bit later in the list than I would have expected because
DJ Ugalele is 8.
Brady Cook at 16.
Yeah, I'd have him higher than that. Yeah, I would.
And
by the way, he's got some good receivers to throw too as well.
By the way, I have yet mentioned Nico. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I'm going to leave it on a jet plane.
Number 17, this will surprise you, I think. Garrett Nussmeier, LSU.
Yeah.
It's probably a right number.
It might be. But
I feel like in other lists he's been higher than Connor.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I'm not saying Garrett Nussmeier won't be good. I'm saying I don't have any reason to think that he's going to be special. But coming in garbage time against Georgia when the game was over and having some success, and then throwing all over Wisconsin, which was god awful last year, that doesn't tell me much.
All right, you won't know much about this number 18 guy.
Okay.
Miller Moss. That's a good name. That sounds like
I actually kind of like that name.
Like he could be a lawyer and a gangster.
It sounds like a green version of a beer.
It's 2 last names. Miller Moss. J.B. Moss's future son. Miller Moss. Nico.
Where's he at? Where's Miller Moss at?
USC. He was the backup to Caleb the last 2 years.
Poor kid.
Nico, number 19. Surprised he's this low after all the national
all the
love.
hype, right? Yeah.
And he's
behind Miller Moss.
Who?
He's behind.
He's behind the two last names.
Wait, you're telling me this guy's going to be a Heisman Trophy contender, and he can't even get ahead of Miller Moss?
He's got Riley. Maybe that's why. Well, look, I have not watched.
Who made this list?
Saturday Down South.
Saturday, come on, dude. Miller Moss ahead of.
He's got a coach who's known to get Heisman Trophy winners.
Well, does that make you a good quarterback, or does that make you put you in a good system?
Good system. Nico is 19.
We can question the system after last year as well.
I think Nico at 19 seems low.
Okay.
That seems like it should be higher.
Yeah,
like
it should
higher,
be ahead of
better
Miller Moss.
Kaiden Salter, Liberty. Next.
Okay.
21, Garrett Green, West Virginia.
He should be at least with Moss, because Moss and Green, they're kind of the same.
I know number 22. I've just never been able to pronounce his last name.
Okay.
Noah Fafita.
Fafita?
The Arizona quarterback. He's good.
Yeah, you know what? And he's ahead of Miller Moss.
100. Based on what we've seen, okay? Here's another one.
But Miller Moss's name's easier to pronounce.
This next quarterback played against Johnny Manziel, and he's still in college football.
Still in college?
Cam Rising. He's like 37.
He should be descending by now instead of rising.
He's really good.
When he's healthy, he's a very good quarterback.
We haven't seen it since when?
I don't know. He started at Texas.
That's right. He did.
If he's healthy, he's a top 10 quarterback.
Number 24.
24.
Avery Johnson.
The Spurs?
Point guard, yeah.
Where is Avery
Johnson? I
Johnson?
prefer to call him the Rockets point guard.
Okay. Where is he now? Yeah, but he won a championship with the Spurs.
Which Avery Johnson are we talking about? Are we talking about the football player or he's still at Kansas State?
No, Kansas State.
Yeah.
All right, see, don't you have to have him ahead of Will Howard? Will Howard's out of town, out of Manhattan, for big reasons, because they were saying, hey, this guy's better.
Well,
so Will Howard is like, where was he on the list?
Will Howard's like 11, I think.
11?
Yeah.
And this guy's 24?
But system, players around you.
Plays
a part of
All
it.
right.
And then number 25, I think low based on the school and the name.
Bill Moss?
Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to say this. I'm shocked that Jackson Arnold is that low when you consider some of the other guys in front of him. And I'm not even saying Jackson Arnold. Jackson Arnold to me is a lot like Nussmeier.
Miller Moss.
Miller Moss.
Watch him have a Heisman Trophy year.
I hope he does.
And then they're going to clip this.
I hope just with that name.
It's a great name.
Miller Moss.
I might rename Christian and Cruz Miller and Moss Nuño.
You should.
I should.
Moss.
They make it mad.
Well, probably the guy named Moss.
Yeah. I hope JB's listening. Get a text here in a minute. All right. So I didn't think we were going to do the whole list, but I was having fun with your reactions to them.
Yeah, I don't get it. And Saturday Down South, usually I think those guys are
pretty good.
legit.
They are.
Maybe I'm way off.
Who did this list? Matt Hinton.
Well, I got a hint for you, Matt.
You're wrong.
Miller Moss. Yeah,
you know what?
But he put Connor in the top 10.
So he's smart. So whatever he's doing is
he should
right.
be at least 8.
I agree.
At least.
But I thought it was I thought it was a good number at 10. I did.
Yeah.
Based on some of the names.
At least they have him ahead of Miller Moss. Unlike,
could you imagine?
Unlike Nico, I'm
leaving on a jet plane. By the way, I would have him personally ahead of Drew Aller.
Yeah, I don't get Drew Aller.
I'd have him ahead of DJU.
Okay.
So this is 7 and 8, and I'd have him over Cam Ward. I think I'd have him over Cam Ward too. But I understand.
Yeah, at least I can understand it.
I understand.
I just wonder what Connor Wigman could have done against those Pac-10 or 12 defenses, because they were all like who did they open up against? New Mexico.
Yeah.
They're all like New Mexico.
Yeah.
Imagine playing New Mexico every week and what kind of numbers you could put up as a quarterback
and a wide receiver.
It doesn't mean you're good.
Yeah. Hey, we're kind of late.
Sorry, I went on.
No, it was funny. I enjoyed it. Let's say hi to Nick Savage. Then we'll hit a break. Then we'll say hi to Caitlin. Okay.
Caitlin Moss.
Yes, Miller Moss's friend. Oh no, it's not Nick Savage today. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Nick is taking a day off apparently.
It's Kate Moss.
It's Kate Moss. Yes, Kate Moss behind the glass. Kate Bickham. Good morning, buddy.
Good morning, y'all. Yeah. I just on the Cam Ward thing. I think that what he did actually, I find it fairly impressive because I think Washington State sometimes has a hard time getting that sort of like skill position talent that a lot of those other Pac-12 schools get. And so I know that their system plays pretty well for quarterbacks, ever since, Mike Leach was there and was doing all his air raid stuff. But I think that
if you follow
those numbers are pretty impressive
if you look
because
at history,
Washington State. Yeah,
Washington State has pretty decent history of turning out quarterbacks even before Mike Leach.
That's true. That is true. All right, let's do this.
Sorry.
Let's hit a break. We will come back. We'll say hi to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin Torrens over there. And then at some point, we'll get to 24 and 24. And I'm sure all the other topics that keep getting pushed back, hopefully we'll get to some of those. Right now, if your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, then you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during events held throughout the year. Marquee events like Aggie Ring Day, All Aggie Hullabaloo, and The Gathering. They welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities available to get your brand in front of those attendees. All events offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand. This includes title sponsorship naming, on-site presence activation, recognition, and social media posts, and much, much more. Plus, there's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, choose a partner with the organization that's been supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. It's the Association of Former Students. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looks so good with Maroon U. OB, I'm going to read you two different chats for two different perspectives, all right?
Okay.
Here's Ag Engineering 12 on the TexAgs chat. Jalen Milroe's got a higher passer rating and a higher QBR than Ewers, playing in a tougher schedule last year. I'm just saying.
Okay.
Okay, there's that one perspective. And where's the other one? Here is, it looks like Kirk BZ09. Milroe's overrated. I wouldn't trade Marcel Reed for Jalen Milroe. We love Marcel Reed.
I do. I love him.
I think he's going to be really, really, really good.
Both of those are valid points, I think, because Milroe was overrated until, and we talked about this even last year, put him in the right offense and he can do something.
It was the wrong system for him initially.
But you know what? Let me ask you, how much would the perception of Jalen Milroe change? And again, I'm a proponent for him. If Auburn had not rushed 2 on the last play.
Oh, yeah.
And he doesn't throw that touchdown pass.
Beautiful touchdown pass, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, remember back when we played in the street and you know, you could just hold the ball. Eventually somebody comes open.
Yep.
And that's what basically Auburn did. They allowed, hey, we're going to let you have all the time in the world to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait. And somebody came open.
Hugh, hopefully you do that a lot when A&M visits Auburn. That'd be great.
Yeah.
By the way, I have a question for you later, but let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Caitlin Torn. Caitlin, I know we got a text message that had an interesting thought to start it off. Why don't you start it off with that, please?
We do, from Chase in College Station. He says, Greg McElroy had an interesting take on A&M's expectations. Doesn't have them as a playoff contender and sets the floor at 8 wins, but in a scenario of 10-2 is a 100% lock in the playoffs. I think it's a fine line that can make this season really special, or a season you can expect with a new coach.
I was having lunch yesterday, name dropping, with Andrew Monaco, Will Johnson, and Dave Elmendorf. We kind of revisited a topic we had on the show on how the 21 season was so close to being a fun, amazing run, right? Not amazing, but yes, pretty incredible run. And that's the difference between 8-4 and 10-2 is those little inches, those little plays. So yes,
we said LSU lived what was supposed to be A&M's season that year.
Was that? No, it was the year after.
The year after. Okay.
Yeah. The year that A&M went 5-7 is the year that Notre Dame had that year. Not Notre Dame, LSU did that, right?
All right, yeah, you're right. My bad.
The year that A&M went 8-4, LSU was terrible, but A&M beat LSU. We all saw it happen.
Yeah.
We just didn't get the result. They just didn't give it to us. But regardless, I think when you talk about 8-4 teams, yes, they're all right there for 10-2.
If Anaya Smith was still here, I'd be very bullish on a 10-2. I'm really concerned most, I think, about the receiving situation. Maybe even more so than the offensive line now.
Really?
Yeah, maybe. I said maybe. I mean,
but give me a why.
Okay, because I think the Moffitt influence is going to benefit the offensive line more than any other place.
Okay, I can live with that. Let me ask you, who is from the current roster, who has done more in their career? Some of those wide receivers or the offensive linemen?
It's a lot easier to look at receivers and say, "Oh, this guy's caught more," but I look at the best guy out there being
Chase Basantis?
Noah was gonna, and that's kind of an incomplete because he's been in and out of the lineup, so he's had great moments. Trey Zuna has had some great moments. I guess if you put it that way, but I'm talking about who do I just feel like is going to be better?
Well, and the line definitely feels like the rotation is going to be different. It has to be. Yeah, it's going to be different. The wide receiver group is going to be different, but potentially it's the same as last year with minus Anias.
Look, I'll give
potentially.
Yeah, but Anias was so huge. I will acknowledge that if you graded the line last year, at best it's probably a C-.
Yep.
But let's also acknowledge that they moved the football against Alabama. And there was a reason they were they were at that 20-yard line when they didn't get or 35 or 30 or wherever it was when they didn't get the 1 yard against Tennessee because they moved the ball to that point. And again, to me, the biggest issue or one of the biggest issues were they just weren't strong enough to get the short yardage when you had to get it, when you had to just man up and move the guy in front of you. They weren't strong enough to get that either short touchdown consistently or convert the play that extends drives. And I think they're going to be stronger this year, and I think they're going to have a better chance at that.
A couple different things will come in. We'll do it on the other side, and then we'll do.
Because I keep talking too much.
24 in 24. Yes, sir.
Because I don't give Torn enough time to talk because I keep yakking.
Torn wants me to call her the Torniac for some reason. She's
I like
just,
it.
Yeah.
Because she's a Torniac.
Yeah.
Torniac on the floor.
This is not true.
You said when I walked in, I'm the Torniac. That's what you said.
That's not how I remember it.
Yeah. Do you remember that, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And like it was like kind of aggressive when she said it, her tone.
She's a Torniac. Torniac on the floor.
The Torniac.
Sounds like me.
The Tornado.
That's even better.
That's an OB line right there.
Especially with the whole Twister things being so popular right now.
Yeah, I won't watch it.
I bet she played that game. Twister.
Oh, Twister, yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Right hand yellow.
You played Twister before?
I've played before.
I've never played.
Classic kids game.
Right hand yellow.
Yeah. Yep.
I've 100% have never played. Ever.
It's fun. It's fun.
When's the last time you played Twister, OB?
Saturday night. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
it was a different version.
I will get that and spin and
hey.
Left hand red.
Rollo Insurance time.
Right foot blue.
They're the official insurance provider of TexAgs Radio. The difference is real. I don't think Jason Rollo plays Twister in the office. Not in the office. Maybe he's played like on a weekend camping trip.
Oregon and everybody around say, hey,
the whole staff.
We're having it's a fun game.
What's the fun of it? Like
you know what's more fun than that though?
What?
Is saving a lot of money on your insurance.
Buddy, that is the most fun thing.
Yes.
Saving money in general, but especially on insurance.
You hate to pay.
Who wants to pay?
Who wants to pay for insurance?
For
you
everything.
Gotta have
gotta
it.
Have this, gotta have that. Imagine having somebody. I feel like we're doing Fargos here. Imagine having somebody that would help you. Like, we'll do the shopping for you, and then we're gonna get you your insurance goals, whatever you want, and they do it for you.
Yes, that's what I need in my life.
Yeah, and then if they say, hey, if you want to drive around Texas and you stop at one of our offices, you got 53.
Yeah, it's like every place I've lived. You know, Tyler, Austin,
they got it.
College Station. You just go, and I've been there.
Like
they're following me.
Like Inspector Gadget.
It's like they're trying to make sure I'm insured.
Homeowner, that's you.
That's me.
Farmers, kind of you. Rancher, for sure.
I'd love to be a rancher.
Business owner.
About 100 head out there on a spread.
And you love God, family, and country just like they do.
Absolutely.
100%. Rollo Insurance. Check out the website, rolloinsurance.com. 888-44-ROLLO. That's Rollo Insurance. 888-44-ROLLO, or go to rolloinsurance.com. What?
I was disappointed. I was hoping they were coming back with that song "Maniac."
Yeah.
You know, she's a maniac. Remember that?
But this song right here.
But if they came back with that song, I was gonna interject and go Torniac.
Well, humble brag. That gentleman right there,
Yeah.
Fife Dog.
Five Dog.
Fife Dog. My good friend. He passed away a few years back, but great guy.
That's his name.
His name is his rap name. His name is Malik Taylor.
Oh, and
but his rap name was Fife Dog.
How did he pass away?
He had diabetes, unfortunately.
That's awful.
Great performer, part of the legendary Tribe Called Quest, which in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And awesome.
I'm sorry that your friend passed.
Great rap group of all time in the '90s. That was my band. All right, let's get
I don't want to make any jokes anymore.
I know. I got in there. I stepped in quickly so I could defend my guys.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I defend many communities. The country music community, the rap music community. That's what I defend.
I just don't know that the rest of the show is going to have to be a little more somber.
Well, let's see if I can get you riled up.
No Miller Moss and references.
I'm going to see if I can get you riled up
okay.
here. By the way,
it doesn't take much.
We're TexAgs Radio.
Yes, we are.
We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers.
Yes, we are. Gem of a guy.
And we are in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We established that.
He plays Twister.
Yep. I hope he's listening. And it is the Go Hour, and it is sponsored by
CC Creations.
That's right.
CC Senior.
So Dave in Edmond says, I'm going to read it like I think he meant it.
Okay.
What does Olin think Bama's record would have been last year if they had to play their fourth-string quarterback in their bowl game?
If they had to play their fourth-string quarterback, I think that their record would have been terrible.
Yeah.
If they had to play their second-string quarterback, they damn near lost to South Florida with Tyler Buckner in there. I think they're. I don't know the point, Dave, that you're trying to make, other than again, if you've listened to this show consistently, I've been a huge proponent of Jalen Milroe.
Yeah,
I thought the fact that they couldn't see what they had was bizarre. So just call plays to his ability.
Ag Engineering 12 says Quinn was surrounded by better pieces last year. Better offensive line, better wide receivers, better tight end, better OC. The only position that you could argue was a push was running back. And
as opposed to Milroe?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I assume you've seen that C.J. Baxter done for the year for Texas.
I heard about
their
that.
RB1. Yeah.
Yeah. They have other good running backs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, he's their number one guy. There's a reason he's number one.
Jaden Blue expected to get most of those touches now. He's moving up to that. You ready to do a little 24 and 24?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do 24 and 24, brought to you by FBS Appliance. They're committed to delivering an exceptional experience from start to finish. You can trust them to provide unparalleled service and support every step of the way because FBS Appliance is your trusted appliance store. Visit any of their 8 showrooms across Texas and find them online at factorybuilderstores.com. Ola, number 12 is
DJ Hicks. Like him a lot.
Today's gonna be a lot of DJ love, by the way.
Yeah,
DJ Hicks and
more than DJ U. That's for sure. I like you a lot more than DJ U. Here's what I like about DJ Hicks. I can't remember where I put him on our list, but I think I might have even had him higher than 12, perhaps, because I always say, hey, are you gonna make your ranking based on productivity and what you saw from him, or potential? And I think in DJ's case, it's both.
It's a little both.
Yeah.
He came on later.
Well, when he got to play, of course he had some issues early. Myles Garrett, maybe when he's over with, maybe one of, if not the greatest pass rushers in all. His first year as a freshman, he had 3 sacks in SEC play. 3. He had like 8.5, but he only had 3 in SEC play. 1 against South Carolina, Mississippi, and Mississippi State. So you have to temper what you see as a freshman. But I watched him in that bowl game. And I know we only had about a couple of tackles, but it's not always about stats, especially as an interior lineman.
Just watching him.
Did you create havoc?
100%.
And he created havoc. And I'm thinking, man, I love this guy. He's a big guy, and I think he's added about 10 pounds, but it's the quickness that he brings to it too. So I think DJ Hicks, especially when you consider the guys around him, he's probably going to get overshadowed a little bit, but still, I think he's the Jethro Pugh to the Bob Lilly and Randy White Turner next. I know there's some hyperbole there, but I'm just saying I think he's a really good guy, a really good player that might get overshadowed just because of who he's playing next to.
Yep. We're going to talk with Billy Liucci, by the way, a programming update at 9:35. He'll talk DJ Sanders. I'll see if I can ask him about DJ Hicks as well before he heads out to practice. But he wrote, I don't know, I think a week ago, 5-5 players poised to make a noticeable jump this fall, and he put DJ as one of those names.
Yeah.
In the first line, the sophomore to be will have to earn the right to chew up significant game reps and on the defensive interior to do so, and eventually nail down a starting job alongside Shamar Turner in August. Hicks will have to outperform a couple of pretty big guys, boasting plenty of experience in the SEC and Big Ten trenches. But he's been very impressive in the Texas Bowl, and his reps increased down the stretch.
Yeah, like I said, I like him a lot. And back to my point, hey, you've heard of Mean Joe Green.
Of course.
Yeah, great player.
Great commercial.
Yep, absolutely, but even greater player.
Yep.
Who was the tackle next to him in that steel curtain?
Remind me?
That's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Ernie Holmes, but and was an outstanding player. But he got overshadowed by Mean Joe Green. I think DJ Hicks is one of those guys that might get overshadowed by Shamar
Not
Turner.
by us. Not by this show.
Well, if I ask somebody who is a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, if I ask Robert Cessna, he's going to say Ernie Holmes. Right. Boom. But so my point is that a lot of times you have that one guy who is the defensive tackle, Vikings fans, next to Alan Page, right? So a lot of times you have one great guy, which I think is going to be Shamar Turner. I'm not saying his career is going to be equal to Alan Page, but in A&M context, you're going to have this great player. But that doesn't mean DJ Hicks, even if he's overshadowed, isn't a really good player. I think he's going to break out.
Yeah.
And I think having Shamar Turner next to him and Shamar Stewart, he's going to be sandwiched between two Shamars.
The two Shamars.
I think he might be Shamarvelous this year.
A bit of info for him. In 23, he played in 156 snaps. At nose tackle, 39, at defensive tackle, 99, and at defensive end, 54. And pro football grades, not fantastic, but his tackling grade was 80.5. 13 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 3 pressures.
Again, that was all accumulated as a true freshman. Don't expect, it's wrong to expect too much from a true freshman, but he got in there. Again, Oklahoma State, he just kept flashing, not necessarily making the tackle, but sometimes you don't make the tackle, but you make the play.
Let me ask you, we'll try to get more with Billy on.
Billy will have plenty to say about DJ Hicks.
DJ Hicks.
Yeah.
I'm going to end this segment with more Dave, okay?
Okay.
Because he wants you to understand his point. My point is that the projections for an 8-win season for us this season is built on the last 3 years of quarterback injuries. You can't predict expecting injuries. True. 8 wins is way under our true prediction.
Okay, I don't have an issue with any of that, Dave. I think even yesterday we were saying, gosh, if A&M had Connor Wigman for the entire year,
how many more wins?
And we're saying, okay, then they won 7, then give me 9, right?
And I think that's being nice. That's being conservative potentially.
Well, I go back to the Ole Miss game especially. Maybe Connor doesn't throw an interception on 1st and goal from the 1.
Right.
If you convert there, you win the game.
It's not as simple as inserting each guy because game plans change. I understand all that, but if you have a QB1 and he's your guy, you're supposed to be better.
There's a reason you're number 1. And I thought Max went out there and I thought he handled himself pretty well, but there were instances against Alabama where if you're a more elusive or mobile quarterback, maybe a mistake at least doesn't turn into a disaster.
Look, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm no doubt in my mind, 100%. If Connor plays in the Tennessee game, A&M wins that game.
Well, I think with
100%.
I think you could say Tennessee. I think you could argue Alabama. I think for sure Ole Miss.
Ole Miss, though, you put yourself in a hole.
You did, and I'm saying everything else happened. I got Connor Wigman out there. Connor doesn't make a lot of mistakes in terms of it seems to me. Again, it's a small sample size.
He's only got 2 picks.
And he seems to make good decisions. I go back to that LSU game when he's a freshman, and a lot of times, he decides when to run at the right time just to keep drives going. And I just think he makes nice decisions under pressure.
Yep.
And to me, and I hate to sound like I'm just cracking on Max, because he played hard. He played pretty well.
The Auburn game, he played fantastic.
But there were some times he was under pressure against Alabama. And he just made bad decisions, and quite frankly, there was a time against Tennessee. And I'm not even talking about the fourth down play. It was a fourth down play, not the one we should have ran a sneak, where there was some pressure and he tried to run out of it, he tripped over his offensive line's leg. Well, a guy like Connor is probably nimble enough to navigate his way out of trouble where Max couldn't.
Yep.
Is that fair?
That is fair, true. But for this season's purposes.
But we were talking about what David Edmond was saying.
This season's purposes, I'm very confident thinking the offensive line is going to be better. I don't know how much better that is. I'm very confident, though, based on personnel coaching changes. I'm confident having 3 capable quarterbacks and your starting quarterback healthy. Very confident there. The question I do have is the same question you have, is about the wide receivers. But I'm not as worried because I take what Coach Elko's words were at the press conference to mean, all right, he doesn't seem that worried. Not that he's going to tell us his worry, but he did say, I can't tell you today the offensive line is going to be the strength of the team. That's a fair assessment.
Oh, I can tell you that the strength, they're never going to be the strength of this team.
Defensive line will be.
Offensive line. But can they be better than last year? Yeah. And by the way, I believe that I personally will start feeling better about the receivers when Barber's able to play again.
Sure.
I'm not saying they can't. Look, I've compared them what I think they're going to be like, and I'll say it again. I think they're going to be similar to what the receiving core that A&M had in 2018.
Let's hit a break here. Brazos Running Company time, located at Century Square. I went to see Mike the other day, got myself some On shoes. These Clouds are nice. They're Cloud something. What is it? Cloud Surfer, I believe they're called, OB. Is that right? Cloud Surfer? Yeah, Cloud Surfer. Not Cloud Twister. No, Cloud Surfers. I went there. I did the whole run. They tested my gait. I know Billy loves when I talk about that, but they found the right shoe for me, and it's been great. I don't buy shoes very often because I'm cheap. I bought these shoes. I've been very, very happy. They have a great selection there when you go. You can get On, you can get Hoka, you can get Brooks, you can get New Balance. You name it, they have all the top brands when you go there. If you're a runner, a walker, or interested in fitness, the right shoe makes all the difference in the world. And at Brazos Running Company, they're going to help you find the right shoe for you to make sure that your training continues seamlessly, right? They have all the other brands you can imagine, from Birkenstock to Vuori. It's a great place to go for holiday gifts, back-to-school shopping, whatever it may be. Check out Brazos Running Company. They're located in Century Square below the Star Center Grill in College Station.
that song either. He's a Torniac. On the mic.
Tourniquet?
She's a Torniac on the mic.
Have you ever heard of that song?
Nope.
I bet she'll never forget it now.
I bet she will. She will. She already forgot.
I bet it's not going to be on our playlist from now on.
TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner Steelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. If you call the show, we'll pick it up on the Boss Firearms hotline. Ob, you brought a topic up during the break that we're not going to do here because there's not enough time to give it the value that it deserves. Maybe we'll bring it up tomorrow, okay? But and I'm not going to even say the topic because then people are going to start texting the show about it. The best actor in a sports movie.
Oh, gosh. The single best actor.
Like, in that role. Not necessarily like, obviously, Al Pacino's the greatest actor in the history of sports movies, but not because of a sports movie, because of Michael Corleone and Tony Montana.
Yeah.
And the Devil's Advocate guy.
The best.
The devil.
Gosh, that's
Kevin Costner.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
got to be Kevin Costner. And Bull Durham.
I thought Tom Berenger was really good as the catcher. And
he was great.
And Denzel Washington as the head football coach in Remember the Titans.
Yeah. Actually,
the
Denzel
guy
might be the
I don't
best
know his
ever.
name, but the guy who played the assistant coach in that movie was really good.
Yeah. And you said earlier, boxing is its own category because of obviously Sylvester.
Yeah,
the
even
legend.
though I thought Russell Crowe was great in Cinderella Man.
Yeah, he was great.
How about Hilary Swank in $1 Million Baby?
Great. How about Clint Eastwood?
Or Morgan Freeman in that?
Yeah. Some good
I
actors.
like movies. I love sports movies, by the way.
But I think
Cuba Gooding Jr. in radio.
Good one.
Yeah.
But the most iconic sports actor?
Yeah.
Kevin Costner.
Yeah, you're probably right.
He's got many roles, and he's great in all of them.
He likes sports.
Even that one terrible football movie he made.
Do you like Charlie Sheen in Major League?
I did. Actually, I did. Thank you, OB.
All right, you bet.
TexAgs. All right, TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. We've talked a lot of Notre Dame this week, obviously, as we get closer to the game. But they've been in the news because they lost a significant piece of their offensive line. And, there's so many storylines we can talk about with Coach Elko and Riley Leonard's connection, and also Notre Dame's path to a college football playoffs could, rest on what happens here when they open up the season. So let's talk about that. We go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. John Brice joining us, Notre Dame insider for FootballScoop.com and Irish Illustrated. What's going on, John? How you been, bud?
Always appreciate the chance to visit with you guys. Busy time of year, but also a fun time of year.
So let's talk Notre Dame, because I don't think their schedule is very difficult. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think it really comes down to A&M game, the USC game. Am I wrong here?
No, you're 100% correct. That's why I think the A&M game is the biggest game of Marcus Freeman's young head coaching career, but it's A&M. I think Florida State coming to South Bend is a big game. I think Florida State's a little better than USC, but USC's on the road at the very end of the year. But really, there's 3 points that you notice immediately on Notre Dame's schedule. It's opening at A&M, it's closing at USC, and then in the middle there is Florida State at home.
I was listening to Jake Crane yesterday. He thinks for Notre Dame to make the playoffs, they need to be 11-1. I don't know if they have to be that good. Do they? Do they have to be 11-1?
I've been asked that question a few times. I think 11-1 is the only way they guarantee themselves a spot, because we just don't know. You can say 10-2 and they would be in. I don't think they can host at 10-2. I think they would still have a good shot to be in at 10-2, but you leave yourself no wiggle room at 10-2, and you have no clue what else might happen in college football at 10-2. But if you're 11-1, you're not only getting in my opinion, but you're one of those 5 through 8 hosts that gets a chance to host a game.
All right, so I've gotten mixed signals about Notre Dame's offensive line. Obviously, the injury to Charles Jagusah is a big deal. Am I saying that correctly? Is it Jagusah?
Yeah, Jagusah. Yeah.
Jagusah. So obviously a huge deal. He was expected to be the guy there at tackle. But they've been known for their offensive lines. They've lost a couple to the NFL. They've got an injury. So what kind of offensive line can that A&M defensive line expect?
Yeah, I think it's a huge injury, to be honest with you. I think I told someone earlier this week, outside of Riley Leonard, I would say Jagusah is the most significant person that the Irish could least afford to lose, because they're really good at running back. They've got good depth at wide receiver suddenly, and they're really good at tight end. What kind of offensive line can people expect? Notre Dame really is high on the interior of their line, guard, center guard, especially the center and right guard. People in the program believe those two players are future NFL players. Center Ashton Craig, right guard Billy Schroth. They're good. They've got a great chemistry that they play together with on the field, even though they're both young with just a handful of starts and career snaps. But they're completely unproven on the flanks. Right tackle Emil Wagner is coming on. He's had a good spring to overtake Tosh Baker for that starting spot. And now Tosh Baker is thrust into the role at left tackle after he's way more veteran than Emil Wagner, but couldn't nail down the right tackle spot in spring. So they're completely untested and unproven on the flanks of the offensive line.
John, most games come down to the trenches, but considering A&M's strength is going to be the defensive line, and considering that is the biggest question mark, is this game really going to be about how they adjust to that defensive front?
I don't think there's any question in my mind that it's going to come down more so than just about any other game. When I look at Notre Dame's schedule, I believe it will be a trench game, and I believe it will specifically be how those two guys on the edge do. Now, I will say there's a lot of belief in Riley Leonard and his athleticism, and this would be a much more dire situation for Notre Dame if it was a year ago and you're breaking in 2 new tackles and one of those guys gets hurt and you have Sam Hartman at quarterback. So between Riley Leonard, his athleticism, the motion and the spread out nature of Mike Denbrock's offense, those are things that help mitigate a little bit the tackle question marks at Notre Dame. But this is going to be a Notre Dame offensive line that isn't remotely as good August 31st as what people in the program believe it will be by November 5th.
Obviously, everybody expects that Riley Leonard is your QB1, but how is camp going for him? How healthy does he look? How's he moving?
Good. He's having a really nice camp. I think that he's had a very strong summer. The thing that I continue to hear about him is just how competitive he is, challenging guys. getting in their faces. He's even on day one, when I got to go over and just check out practice for a bit, you see how competitive he is. You see how he expects to execute on a play in and play out basis, how he expects excellence, and expects them to go out and be successful. So I think that his competitive edge is something new. And talking with people in the program, talking with players earlier this week, I think that's something that absolutely is rubbing off on this Notre Dame offense.
Talking to John Brice there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. John, when we talk about Mike Denbrook, what have you learned about him? Because we know what he did at LSU. That offense was incredible. But with the talent that he has there at Notre Dame, what have you seen? What have you learned about what this offense could look like?
Good question. I got to do a really big in-depth feature on him a few years ago when he was still at Cincinnati. I did it for Football Scoop, and I spent some time with him for that. And I'm a strong believer that the really good coaches in this game are the ones that adapt their schemes to fit their personnel. And that's one of the things that I remember thinking about Denbrock when I talked to him at Cincinnati. He is an older coach who is willing to evolve completely like a younger coach. He is not so obstinate and set in his ways that it's going to be his system no matter what. No, he's taking the pieces available to him and finding ways to maximize them. And so I think that's the biggest thing. There's much more diversity in this Notre Dame offense. Jaden Harrison, the All-American return specialist that Notre Dame got out of the portal from Marshall, looks like a real difference maker. Bo Collins from Clemson, Chris Mitchell from FIU. Those are guys you can expect to be factors in the throw game. And then, look, they don't have a back who's punishing like an Audric Estime, who's now in the NFL. But what they do have are two pure running backs with a little bit better vision, a little bit better decisiveness, who can plant a foot in the ground, make one cut, and get upfield in Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price.
Give me a little bit more info on these wide receivers because it's Mike Denbrook and what he did at LSU, and you think about the wide receiver talent that he had, and obviously a Heisman Trophy quarterback. I'm trying to see how that translates there with what the Irish have. So give me just a little bit more on that wide receiver group.
Yeah, it's hard to convey fully how much that room has overhauled itself in such short order. And this was a time a year ago that by the fourth week of the season, Notre Dame maybe only had 5 scholarship wide receivers healthy. And by the 6th game of the season, they had to literally turn Jordan Faison, who was at school on a lacrosse scholarship and wasn't supposed to play a down for Notre Dame, into a regular rotational member of the Notre Dame wide receivers corps. Now it's completely revamped. They're really deep at the slot position because you can use Jaden Harrison. You can use Jaden Greathouse, who was great last year as a freshman, looks even better now as a true sophomore, a guy from Texas. You can use Faison in the slot or outside. Jeremiah Love, the running back, has gotten some work at the wide receiver positions. And Bo Collins has played a lot of football, played a lot of power conference football at Clemson. He's a difference maker. He's just a real physical presence for them. Incredibly well built. Some guys have said maybe the best athlete on the team, either side of the ball. Chris Mitchell has the ability to stretch the field and take the top off. Had some huge numbers at FIU. You wonder, the competition steps up a little bit. How will Chris adjust? But those are the main guys in the wide receiver room. And then Jaden Thomas is an incredibly veteran guy for Notre Dame, who's absolutely looks like he's in the best shape of his life. He's had hamstring injuries really derail him a couple of years in a row. If he stays healthy, he'll be another guy in the top 6 that's a huge factor for Notre Dame.
So before this interview, I Googled Notre Dame versus the SEC just to kind of get a feel for how they've done. And overall, they've had a lot of success. But what can you tell me in recent years, maybe the last 5-6 years? Do you know?
Yeah, I do know. And they haven't played a lot of SEC teams. They haven't had a lot of significant wins in the postseason. Their most significant wins in recent years, be at the end of the Brian Kelly era or the first 2 full seasons of Marcus Freeman at the helm, have been against Clemson and USC. They've measured themselves for a long time against Clemson. That's a team they had to beat in 2020 to get into the college football playoff. But they haven't faced a lot of SEC teams. They had Georgia home and away. They were competitive in both of those games. They really let the game get away from them against Georgia in 2018 in South Bend, had a bunch of red zone trips, kicked field goals, missed field goals. Georgia got a late game touchdown. I think Mecole Hardman that turned around that game and gave the Bulldogs a very close win. Went down to Georgia a year later, played much closer than anybody expected, and kept that to like a one-score game, but lost and weren't really a big threat to ever win that game. So that's sort of where they've been with the SEC. They've obviously opened with A&M this year, have A&M coming to South Bend next year. They've got Alabama on the schedule 3 or 4 years down the road as well. So they're going to get more and more opportunities against the SEC, but they haven't had a significant win like that. They haven't had a postseason win, a New Year's Six win, since around 2004 or 5.
John, I want to talk a little bit about this defense because I know where they rank. I know they have NFL stars on there, right? But as an analyst, as a A&M fan, like I look at this and I'm like, yeah, but who have they played offensively? I know they did great against Ohio State. They lost that game, but they only gave up 17 points. They gave up 30-plus to Louisville. I look at the competition that this defense has kind of used their numbers on, and I'm like, I don't know. But then I also know they're churning out NFL talent. I think they have 10 of 11 players coming back on defense. Maybe that number's a little skewed. Am I right about that? And how good really is this defense?
Yeah, I think it's a really good defense. I do. I think that, and I covered SEC. I lived in Knoxville for a long time. And so I feel like I have a really good pulse on the SEC, and this is the most SEC-like defense I've seen Notre Dame have in my years around Notre Dame or living in the Midwest and seeing them a little bit more up close. So they're really good on the interior with their starters, Howard Cross and Riley Mills. Both those guys are NFL prospects. RJ Oben, who was at Duke, looks really good to be a difference maker. They don't have one freak off the edge like you see at a lot of SEC schools or like you have seen at a lot of SEC schools and even occasionally at an Ohio State or a Michigan. They're good there. They're not, you don't look at their edges and say, okay, that's a first round guy. Not yet anyway. They've got a couple of young guys that I think can develop into top 30, top 60 NFL draft picks, but they're not there yet. They're really, really good at the second level. Their linebacker core looks like an SEC linebacker core. They've got depth, speed, and versatility there. And then in the back end, Ben Morrison, I think, will challenge Travis Hunter as being the best cornerback in the nation. What they do opposite Ben Morrison is the biggest question mark in the secondary. There's talent there, especially Christian Gray, the sophomore. He's got tremendous upside, a guy out of St. Louis. He's not as polished as a Ben Morrison. He's every bit as physically skilled, maybe even slightly a little bit larger than Ben Morrison. And then Xavier Watts is a returning Bronco Nagurski winner and the best safety in college football, or was a year ago. So I like the makeup of the defense. So if you ask me how it stacks up to really good defenses, I think it's very much an SEC-like defense with the overall quality and depth. They just do not yet have a proven freak off the edge.
Where do you give Notre Dame the advantage? Where do you give A&M the advantage outside of maybe defensive line that we discussed already?
Well, I've been to College Station. I was a sideline reporter for a game there in 2016, an afternoon game between the Aggies and Tennessee, a CBS game, a tremendous game.
Overtime
it was crazy
game?
hot, and it was crazy hot, and that was the second weekend of October. I don't think we've had a very hot summer here in South Bend. So first and foremost, I do expect the heat and the environment to be real factors for Notre Dame. Notre Dame Stadium seats around 78,000 people. There'll be 110, 11,000 people there at Kyle Field. That's a tremendous difference. And a lot of these guys just have not seen an environment remotely anything like that. A few of them played at Ohio State a couple of years ago, 102-ish thousand, but it never got that loud. It was not anything like the respect I have for Kyle Field or the crazy atmosphere that I believe Kyle Field is. So first and foremost, it's right there. I think that Texas A&M's defensive line is an edge over Notre Dame's offensive line. I think that Riley Leonard and Connor Wegman probably sort of neutralize themselves. Riley's got a little bit more experience. I think he can do just a little bit more with his legs. But I think this is an incredibly low-scoring one-possession game.
Okay. And what can you tell me about Marcus Freeman in this his third run? How are things? Does he seem like, is it his team now? Is it officially his team?
It is his team. It's definitely his team. You know, he's made changes in the weight room. Actually, right going into last year, His previous weight coach left for personal reasons, and that was a guy that they had held over. He went out and got Lauren Lando in January, hired him. He's been an NFL strength and conditioning coach. They feel like they're definitely more specialized and more dynamic. Even offensive linemen said that we weren't doing the same drills as running backs and wide receivers, and that's not always been the case. And so they feel like they've had more intentionality in their offseason program. We'll see how that shows up August 31st in College Station, but it's definitely Marcus's program. Look, he's 2 years into a 6-year deal. Most coaches, when they just have 4 years left on the deal, are really eyeing a contract extension. I think that's Marcus Freeman, but I think he has to open this season with a win to not face tremendous pressure across the balance of the 11 games remaining guaranteed on the Notre Dame schedule.
Do you buy that Coach Elko really knows Riley's game, which he obviously does, but and that is going to be a huge advantage? Or new system, new players around him, you really can't read into that?
No, I think that a head coach has an innate knowledge of his quarterback, and they weren't together too terribly long, but they were together enough. I think that's absolutely a bit of an advantage for Elko. And then I think that Denbrock, having been in Texas A&M before from his time at LSU, I think that helps him know what the environment will be. But again, he didn't face an environment when he was at LSU like what I expect August 31st to be. I expect August 31st to not only be a great environment that day, I expect it will be one of the best environments that we see over the balance of the season in college football.
Well, and then how often is Riley asked about Coach Elko? Because that's, everything's about that first game. And not only because it's the marquee game, but it's the first game. And we have months and months to talk about it.
Yeah, he's not been exposed to the media very much. So he's scheduled to talk to reporters, I think, a little bit later this week. And I think that the Elko questions and the Duke questions and all of that will ramp themselves up a little bit. Now, again, I referenced R.J. Oben on the defensive line for Notre Dame, and he was at Duke the previous 4 years. So he's got some intimate knowledge of Mike Elko's defense and what Elko likes to do. I do think that's something that can just help Notre Dame have a little bit more awareness. But look, Elko climbed to where he is because he's been a brilliant defensive force. And what I remind people is, look, with an overall way less talented Duke team last September, he nearly beat a Notre Dame team that was much better on the offensive line a year ago, better overall everywhere else. But Mike Elko has already shown you he can coach up with less talent, and now he's got really nice talent at Texas A&M.
So just from afar, because I know you don't just cover Notre Dame, you cover all of college football, what kind of year do you expect from A&M?
I think I said it earlier this week on the Football Scoop podcast. I think A&M is a team that's a bit undervalued right now, and they've got a brutal schedule, and it is a rebuild. But let's also remember another point that's a subplot in this game is that last January of 23, Marcus Freeman went out and tried to hire Colin Klein as his offensive coordinator, brought him into South Bend, flew him in, really verbally offered him the job. So there's another subplot right there, is that Marcus Freeman's going against a guy he brought into South Bend and really wanted to be running the Notre Dame offense. But I think that A&M is a little undervalued. I think that, again, we've seen Mike Elko able to win more than expected with less than expected. Now he's got more talent than he's ever had as a head coach. If an A&M somehow upsets if A&M wins this first game against Notre Dame and it's a coin flip game, then I think you're talking about a team that can go win 9-10 games.
Yeah, John, I want to close out with this. Let's just say it's a 9-3 type year for Notre Dame. Is Marcus Freeman there next year?
If it's 9-3, he's here next year, but then he's only got 3 years left on the deal, and I don't think there's any talk about an extension, and you wonder the ramifications on the recruiting trail and everything. Look, these last couple of years when he's faced off against his alma mater, Ohio State, the first year in the opener, last year in the second or third game at home, those were mega games for Notre Dame and Marcus Freeman. This, hands down, at Texas A&M is the biggest game of Marcus Freeman's coaching career. Head coaching career, assistant coaching career, whatever you want to call it. This is as big as it will get for Marcus Freeman in the here and now.
John, that's great stuff, man. Appreciate your time. Let's do it again.
Yeah, let's absolutely do it again. You guys are pros. Always appreciate the chance to visit.
Thank you so much. John Brice there on the Boss Firearms Hotline. You can catch his work at footballscoop.com and Irish Illustrated. Good conversation there. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Coach Henry. He'll be on the phone. Let's chit-chat with him, a little Olympic talk. Right now, let's talk getting hungry. Like, it's 9:20. Some of you have been up since 5 a.m., so you're already thinking about lunch. Some of you just woke up 5 minutes ago. You're like, dude, I just got to get to my eggs. But when you're ready for lunch, you're ready for dinner, check out Varsity Grill House. It is an awesome place there on Highway 6, right by the Academy. Food is great. When you walk in there, it's like a fancy sports bar, but it's, for a sports bar, restaurant, if you will. Classy, but just like it's the place you want to go be with your buds at, right? You want to take your family out, want to take your wife for a nice dinner, you go to Varsity Grill House. They do have 4 farm steaks. There are sizzling burgers. They've got mouth-watering dishes. They have it all, signature cocktails at the bar. They've got something for everyone, mason jar desserts, perfect ending to a great meal when you go there to Varsity Grill House. They're the destination for hosting unforgettable gatherings. Swing by and taste the difference. They want to create unforgettable experiences for big and small events, signature dishes, custom menus. They want to ensure that every palate is satisfied. It is the Varsity Grill House. Go there for your home for good times and great food. Varsity Grill House in College Station on Highway 6 next to the Academy. All right, we are back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's talk a little track and field and some Olympics with our weekly conversation with Pat Henry, brought to you by Schulte Roofing, an award-winning roofing company built that provides industrial, commercial, and residential services to Belleville, to Brenham, to Bryan, to College Station, Conroe, Montgomery, Navasota, and San Antonio, the Woodlands, and surrounding counties. Schulte Roofing is the home of the Bulletproof Roof Guarantee, the industry's absolute best roofing system, roof installation, warranty, and 100% satisfaction guarantee or your money back. With that, we go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We are joined with Pat Henry. Coach Henry, how are you, sir?
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. What's going on in your world?
Well, I'm sorry I missed you last week. That's my fault.
Oh, good.
I had something come up, and it's just the way it was last week.
Yeah, we all get busy, sir. I totally understand. I appreciate your time this morning. So far, we have 6 Aggies that have medaled, but in the Olympics, but 4 of them are from track and field. Just kind of talk about taking it all in, seeing all these great Aggie athletes competing at the highest level.
Yeah, between Fred Curley, Lyndon Victor, Bryce Dedman, and Shamir Little, those are great performances. Anytime you medal at the Olympic Games, that's just, that just doesn't happen. And for that 4 to do that is pretty exceptional. And I think Fred's going to be on the 4x1 this morning or last night, and they qualified. He ran second leg, so he has an opportunity to medal again. Bryce has got another opportunity to medal in the 4x4, I think, as well. And Shamir could run on our women's first group too. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next day or two.
What do you remember about Fred's time here, and like just his personality, his work ethic, and obviously you're not surprised he's doing so well.
No, and I ran Fred a lot at 400 meters when he was here, and he's running 100 meters right now and 200 meters. I think eventually he'll come back. If he stays in it, eventually he'll come back to the quarter. But when he was with me, he had come out of the junior college and been hurt the whole time, and so I didn't want to sprint him very much. We sprinted a little bit the second year, and he's just taken off. He's just done a tremendous job. To run 9.8 is just outstanding. I mean, he was close to winning the thing. I mean, he's within 6 inches of winning the track meet this weekend. So he's had an outstanding year, and I think people just don't believe Fred can run 100. They, Fred ran 400s for so long that they still don't believe he can run 100. He's making a believer out of everybody. But he's still noted as a quarter miler, so it's interesting to watch that dynamic happen.
No doubt about that. And Brice, obviously, doing great things as well.
Yeah, Brice, Brice had 2 medals last year or 3 years ago at the Olympic Games. So Brice has been there before. Fred's been there before too. So has Lyndon. Now Shamir, this is her, really her first competitive Olympic Games. But we still got Tricky is still in the triple jump coming up. Brandon Miller's got an opportunity at 800 meters to qualify today. So we got a couple more guys that could get in there. Tricky, I think, has got a good chance of medaling in the triple jump. Brandon has got a big road in front of him, but if he makes the final, that'll be a tremendous one for Brandon. Jacob Wooten jumped 18.4.5 in the vault, but that won't get you in there. He jumped 19 plus this year, but he just wasn't able to do it on that day. And same with Maggie Malone in the javelin. This is Maggie's 3rd Olympic Games, but she just really had a tough time this time.
Coach Henry, when you think about a thing not being here, and just how heartbreaking it was, and I'd love to see what she could have done this year.
Who's that?
A thing, Mo?
The thing?
Yep.
Yeah. No, really a tough one. I hope that she makes some change. I hope she does some things a little bit different. because if she doesn't, I think she's going to be caught up in what she's doing right now. But those are decisions she's got to make for herself, and we'll see what happens. Getting tripped, you can't do anything about that. And she had run pretty good before it. She hadn't run enough, I don't think, but she has another coach, so that's fine. That's what they're doing. She ran 1,500 more than she ran 8 even. So, they're just a little different philosophy. It may pay off for her, but we'll see.
What's the schedule like for you, sir? Training and getting folks here on campus getting ready.
Cross country reports this week, so we get going pretty good. Those guys are already, and ladies are still already training real hard right now. If they're not, the season's already over for them. They didn't train real hard this summer. They're going to have a hard time, and we'll see who's in good shape coming in this week. Track and field reports next week, and then we'll get started in a couple of weeks training with track and field. So everything gets going pretty quick. It's hard to believe the summer's already over.
How special is it for you to watch your former athletes perform on this stage?
Yeah, I think that it's that's part of the joy you get out of coaching. That's part of why you stay in it and you continue to coach, is to continue to watch your athletes grow and mature and to be an Olympian. Very, very few collegians are ever on this team. So it takes time for a lot of them to mature enough to be able to make an Olympic program, make an Olympic team. But it's a lot of fun to watch your ex people. Yeah.
Do you ever catch yourself watching and kind of like coaching in your head, like, oh, you need to do this, or like beforehand, I hope they're thinking about X, Y, and Z?
Well, I just kind of verbalized that about a thing just now.
Yeah.
You do. You continue to think that if they were with you, we would do a little bit different, or we'd do this or do that. And sometimes we wouldn't. Sometimes I think the person that's working with them right now is just doing a great job with them. Lyndon for sure is one of those guys right now that he's got a good coach and he's working really hard, and Lyndon's been able to stay in the sport. So sometimes that's really difficult for a decathlete because they don't, very seldom do they have money sponsors, and he's picked up some money sponsors, and so that's keeping him in the sport.
Coach Henry, we appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much for making time. We'll talk to you very soon.
You bet. Thanks a lot. And these Aggies have done a great job, and they continue to put us on the map, and that helps our program. These guys and these ladies that still continue to do well, that helps our program. So, they're very much appreciated, and they've done a great job for us.
Coach Henry, have a great week, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, bunch. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And also thank you to Schulte Roofing here for bringing us that weekly segment with Coach Henry. We're going to hit a break here. I think we got Billy on the other side. We'll chit-chat a little DJ Sanders with him, maybe even get into DJ Hicks, depending on time. He's got a role to practice that starts, I think, right around 10 o'clock. Right now, we're talking about Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Why did I say it like that? Kaylin, why did I say it?
I liked it. I thought it sounded cool.
Caldwell Country Chevrolet. I love Caldwell Country Chevrolet. I just said it. Boom. Adam's the GM over there. He's a great guy. I want you guys to know that they have some cool things going on right now. They have a great selection of commercial vehicles. They've got body trucks. They got service body trucks, flatbed trucks, several medium-duty trucks for those heavier jobs. So they've got options when you go there. They've got great options. If you're looking to just get a new vehicle, that's the place you got to think about. And if you're listening to this show, you're probably close, even if you're in Antarctica. Think about Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Locally owned, operated by great Aggie alumni, complimentary pickup and delivery for service customers, which includes free oil changes for life on the purchase of your vehicle as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. A proud supporter of Aggie athletics, and of course, they've got a great and strong committed sales staff with many, many years of satisfying customer needs. They are the premier dealer for commercial vehicles and all of your business needs. Make the short drive to Caldwell to experience a car buying experience like never before. They have a huge inventory selection to fit most needs, and they want to make long-lasting relationships with all of their customers. It is just south of big city prices. They promise to treat their customers like family. We're talking about a 15-minute drive, Bryan, the edge of Bryan, to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. on the back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It's the Now Hour, presented by Happy Hats. Hello, Billy.
David.
How are you, sir?
I am well.
It looked yesterday when I saw you after practice. I wish I could have gone to practice, but I have a show to do.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like you were practicing. Everybody who came back from practice yesterday was like, "My gosh, it was hot."
It's hot.
Yeah.
And it waited. By the way, they went. Look, we've got the whole coffee set up here. TexAgs coffee.
Beat the hell out of mornings by going to texags.com/coffee. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I drank my Dunkin', and now I put it back in here. TexAgs coffee. So second big cup, and then I've also got some milk here, and I asked for a normal coffee mug, and this is what they brought.
Maybe
me.
it is my coffee.
So is this yours?
It might be, but it used to be back here. Somebody took it.
Well, this is ridiculous.
That's a great cup. What's wrong with it?
First of all, it's too small.
I agree with that.
Look, oh, hey, a little cup here.
It tastes better in a mug, though.
It does, but that's just, I mean, I can't even fit my fingers in
I'm never going to
thing.
use that cup now because your fingers are all up in it.
There you go. And now they bring me one that's the same size.
No, it's a little bigger.
All right, Rollo, way to go. Rollo Insurance Studios.
Apparently he plays Twister, according to Olin. Never mind. DJ Sanders. What? It was a whole thing during the go.
I'm glad I missed it. I'm glad I missed it. Let's move on to DJ Sanders.
2025 Belleville defensive tackle DJ Sanders on a day of celebrating DJs. 6'4", 300.
DJ Day. I like it.
No DJ Durkin, though.
Pasture of Pain.
That's a great name right there.
It is.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a country music video that was filmed there?
There's probably one you don't know about. My Prairie.
Really?
Yeah. It's a Zach Bryan unreleased album. I'm making this up. I don't know. I can't tell you what.
Okay. I could be wrong, but I think Doug Supernaw may have filmed a video there.
Okay.
I'm not positive. We'll have to look that up, or somebody can fact check. Not even fact check, because I'm not stating it as fact, but I believe it to be true. I love this edition. I love it. I love the fact that they got a really productive and disruptive, dominant player in the defensive trenches. Look at these numbers. That's a wild amount of tackles, and they played a lot of games.
Yeah,
they played for the state championship, which DJ was a massive part of that. But to have 100, they probably played 15 games. And you're averaging 10 tackles a game as a defensive lineman, and then you look at his tackles for loss total is just wild. 28 in 3 years. He's got 53, and 15 sacks last year. Forced fumbles. You can watch him scoring. I think he scored a couple, if not 3, defensive touchdowns. You just watch a guy that has. If you watch him on tape here, he's got football instincts. He's great with his hands. I like a guy that there he is, just taking the ball away. Again, that's instinctive right there. That's like something a defensive back would do.
Right.
You know, that's not something a D end that weighs 290 pounds. You just see him on tape like he did just there. He's regularly snapping heads back. He's very forceful at the point of attack. He's patient when he does get in that backfield. He's patient and just has a feel for the game that I haven't seen in too many D linemen. And he's just a bull. There he is, speaking of bull, there he is bull rushing. But he's just a very physical.
He looks like a college player there.
Well, yeah. I mean, build-wise, he's listed 6'4", 290. And I think he has so much to gain in a weight room. And I'm not saying he's going to weigh a whole lot more. He could, though. With his frame, he could end up being you just don't know. He could end up being a 330-pound interior guy that can just wreak absolute havoc and wreck shop, or he might tone all that up and be in that 310 range and be just 6'3" plus, almost 6'4" and 310. He's a violent at the point of attack guy, violent tackler. You can tell. Here's what I love. Okay, there are 3 guys that they've got right now on that D line. They just jump off on tape. As far as like you watch each one of them, including DJ, and you go, they love playing football, and all 3 of them just flat out get after it, Nuño. There's not an ounce of lazy. And when
Three dudes right there trying to stop
when
him.
and when you can take 3 high school blue chip D-line recruits and watch them on tape and go, man, none of these guys are lazy or take plays off. That's not common. That's not common at all. And for DJ Sanders to be, he's so much more talented than the majority of the guys, physically gifted than the majority of the guys he's going against. It would be real easy to understand that you don't necessarily have to have that kind of motor at all. But look at him. And I know this is a highlight tape, but that's how he plays. You don't rack up those kind of numbers without it. And I guess we've got him listed at 300. He probably is. When you see what his frame really looks like, he probably is. What they're doing on the D-line, that's a massive get for Sean Spencer, Tony Giardetti, Jay Bateman, and Elko. Look, Texas A, you were going to talk DJ Hicks for a minute, right? Like, I don't know who you've got on at 10, but
Jacob Hester, but I can push him back, maybe.
No, it's okay. I don't want to have Hester on. We don't want to push Hester. But what they're doing, like, you look at this D-line right now, and I talked to an NFL scout this week and he's been out here before already in camp, and he just said, Billy, you don't he's been around the South, first of all, but he just said there's not you just can't tell me there's a defensive line more stacked and that should be any better than this one this year. He just this is an NFL guy, just said there shouldn't be a better D-line in the country this year with the talent that this team has, the experience, the NFL guys, the depth, the young guys,
the coaching,
the size, the pass rusher, and now the coaching in Elko's system. But the key is to keep that going,
right? Because
that's ahead of other positions on this team. And Elko, like what you've seen in the secondary in 1 year, and what you see what they're doing with this DB class, they're going to rapidly catch up at other positions.
Yep.
But the D-line right now is elite by any metric, by a Georgia metric, by an Alabama metric, an LSU metric, an Ohio State metric. Name the programs that have thrived in this conference and nationally in the last few years. A&M, LSU would I shouldn't even mention them because they would trade D-lines. They would probably trade their starting D-line for A&M's second team. That's LSU. And try to argue with me on that. Like if you're LSU and you're listening, like look at what A&M's second team D-line might look like and tell me they wouldn't trade. So if there's one thing you really want to keep going, it's that.
Yep.
And with this class of D-linemen, I think there's no question they're doing that. And then the guys last year, those two late additions from Florida, I watch them every day out there, and I'm like, okay, those guys they got something to them too. So I think what they're doing on the D-line is really significant. And then when you look at DJ Sanders, I think they might have the 2 best in the state. And I think Shane Rink's the most underrated player in the state because in no world, Landon Rink, Shane Rink's his dad, that's who I grew up watching. There's no world you can tell me that guy's one of the more underrated players in Texas when that he's not going to come in and have a massive impact on the locker room and a football team. You see him power cleaning like over 300 pounds the other. It was absurd. He's so strong. He reminds me actually of Seth. What Seth was in high school, where you just got so much raw power that you're just you can't even kind of play it out and see what's that guy going to be doing with 2 years under Tommy Moffitt. But Sanders was also a huge addition from the standpoint of quite possibly the best D lineman in Texas. And then second, and there, see, I'm looking right there at that, just those last 3 names right there, Sims, Jones, and Sanders. I know Jones is a outside linebacker type. those three dudes right there can be game changers. And I think Chase Sims, I think everybody needs to go watch him this fall if you're trying to accurately rank defensive linemen in Texas and nationally. Go watch him and tell me that guy shouldn't skyrocket up. Again, what they've done up front, but with Sanders, that was a big head-to-head with Texas. Texas made a furious push on him. A lot of people thought he was going there, and A&M just laid back and felt comfortable, got him. And I think this is just Texas A&M is where that Belleville Brahma wants to be.
So the break, we'll do a little DJ Hicks on the other side. It's TexAgs Radio. We're going to have about 2 minutes here. 24 in 24, brought to you by FBS Appliance, committed to delivering an exceptional experience from start to finish. You can trust them to provide unparalleled service. Check them out at factorybuilderstores.com. They have 8 showrooms in Texas. Number 12, Billy Liucci, is DJ Hicks, a guy that you wrote about not too long ago, who's going to be a disruptor on the interior. Looking forward to seeing your assessment of him.
Yeah, well, first of all, there's been a couple reps I've seen already in fall camp where you just go, that's that 5-star ability. That's that every school in the country recruiting you flash right there. That's that every vulture and predator in college football trying to go and convince him to go in the portal when Mike Elko got here, and he didn't. And I look at those stats from last year. I don't even care. I watched tape in that bowl game. He and Dalton Brooks, when I watched them in that bowl game, I said, okay, they're ready. They're ready to start. And then they got to fend guys off. Dalton Brooks, you go watch Trey Jones out there in practice. Tell me what you think of that 6'2", 215-pounder back there, grown man at safety. Go look at Rodus Johnson, 25 or so starts in the Big Ten on the inside, and Albert Regis, who has the respect of that entire locker room. But DJ Hicks, and I mentioned Brooks, and those guys, like when you watch that bowl game, you could see, okay, they're different. They stand out there on the football field, whether it was A&M or Oak State, whoever. Those two guys stand out with their just how they move. They move differently, and DJ Hicks, it's a different level of athleticism in that 300+ pound body. He has really benefited from Tommy Moffitt. And we'll say that about most guys, and they should. But when you see a DJ Hicks, I think he had that body type that you either really tone it up and he looks like an NFL D lineman, or he just gains a lot of weight and is a heavy inside guy. He looks like an NFL D lineman today. He's 1 year removed from arriving on campus. He's going to change games.
Thank you, Billy. Jacob Hester next on TexAgs. All right, TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. We're going to go to the Boss Firearms Hotline, talk to one of our good friends here on the program, Jacob Hester. You know him from his time at LSU and obviously the NFL on Sirius Satellite, ESPN Baton Rouge. He does it all. He joins us here on the program. Jacob, buddy, how you been? Hello.
Hey, what's going on? You got me?
Hey, man, how you been?
Doing good. First day of school. You know, I've got 5 kiddos, so the first day of school is always an exciting time. It's always a little bit chaotic, organized chaos, if you will. So in between shows, you know, trying to make sure the kiddos got to where they were supposed to get to. I've got my oldest starting high school, you know, so exciting moments around the Hester household as we get ready for the first day of school.
Jacob, I got 4, and I never complain. I wish I had more. I love having 4 children that are very busy, but it's almost impossible to get them to all these activities. Do you have that same problem?
Yes, I am just counting down the days until my oldest, who's about to turn 15, can drive. I feel like that will help out because he'll be able to take some of the younger siblings to school at least, maybe, you know, pick up for some football practices because you know, our ages are all over the place. And, of course, they're into literally everything. And so either that or, you know, hire a shuttle service.
I call myself an Uber daddy because all I do is just drive people places. I have no time after the work.
That's right. No question about it.
Hey, it's going to be a little different this year, A&M and LSU playing in October. Just your thoughts on that shakeup, not being the end of the season, where those two programs seem to be headed. Just give me some thoughts way deeper into the season.
Yeah, so, like, that was a game that, as we've talked about before, right, it was when A&M came into the league, they put it on LSU's schedule, and it felt a little forced at the time. Even though they had a history together, I mean, they certainly played before A&M joined the league, but it was one of those games where it's like, okay, is this going to work? Is this going to become a thing? And then all of a sudden, I mean, A&M hires Jimbo. You have the 7 overtime game. You have some really good games after that. It wholeheartedly became a thing. I mean, it was something that I think both fan bases kind of looked forward to at the end of the year. But look, it makes sense for A&M to, you know, match back up with Texas. I'm actually excited about Oklahoma and LSU maybe creating their own new little rivalry situation. The last 2 times those teams have played, it's been one for a national championship, the other in a college football playoff semifinal. So we'll see how that plays out. But I'm still excited about A&M and LSU. I think it makes all the sense in the world for them to play every single year, even if it's not the very end of the season. And look, for LSU, it's a place they have not had a lot of success. They haven't won in College Station since 2016. And so I think LSU fans, I know here locally, me and T-Bob talk about it, that's a game that they've kind of got circled. I know a lot of people on the outside want to talk about Ole Miss and they want to talk about Alabama and Oklahoma. Those games are all inside Death Valley. This game's going to be in a place, again, they haven't been really successful. And T-Bob and I are both high on Texas A&M. I think that game 1 matchup against Notre Dame is so fascinating because of what it can do for the Aggies if they win that one. As we all know, you create that momentum early in the season. You're already in the top 20. You could be in the top 10 in the blink of an eye. And so it's a game that we're all looking forward to. I can't wait to see how Mike Elko's, you know, identity, because we kind of know who he wants to be. He's been there before. He was successful as a defensive coordinator there. But now that he's the head coach, I think Texas A&M is going to really have a new identity. We know Tommy Moffitt. Tommy Moffitt's the reason that I was able to be the player that I was. He was your strength coach my entire time at LSU. I know he's going to be mean, nasty, tough. That's just who he is. And I think the entire team, because of Tommy Moffitt, because of Mike Elko being the head coach, is really going to take that on.
Jacob Hester here on the Boss Firearms Hotline, Aggieland's premier gun and accessory shop. They've got all you need to build your next firearm. Check them out at bossfirearms.com. Look, we've been trying to look ahead, right? It's sometimes difficult to look ahead, but we've been trying to look ahead. But I got to ask you, you had a great relationship with Jimbo Fisher. What went wrong, and have you spoken to Jimbo recently?
Oh, yeah. I mean, actually, I hosted an hour of radio with Jimbo not that long ago.
That's right.
And so over on off campus, me and EJ Manuel hold it down, and we both played for Jimbo, you know, at different spots. And so he hopped on with us for an hour, and like not as a guest, kind of as a co-host. It was fantastic, telling old stories and kind of reliving some of our times together, and hopefully we can do that again throughout the season. Love Jimbo. Again, Jimbo believed in me to play running back in the SEC when a lot of people probably wouldn't have, and so I owe a lot to him as well. But as far as like what went wrong, it's hard to maybe pinpoint one thing or the other. Obviously, the offensive philosophy was something that a lot of people point to. And look, as much as I love, and you know this about me, I love old school football. I love 21 personnel. I love 12 personnel. Let's line up. Let's, be tougher than you. Let's make sure we dominate the line of scrimmage, and we're going to build everything off running the football, play action pass. All that's great for me and my mindset. Doesn't mean it's great for college football. And I think you saw A&M still try to do some of that. It wasn't working. Then they tried to live in a world that they weren't really comfortable in. That certainly wasn't working. And so I really think it was just you were trying to do something that's almost impossible to do now in college football. I mean, look at some of the teams that are still trying to do it, like Iowa, right? Iowa had like a top 5 elite defense, but they had the worst offense in the country because they were still trying to do it the old school way. If you do it the old school way, you've got to have guys like Michigan had. Like Michigan had a very unique group of players that could still run that type of offense. And they also had a first-round quarterback, too. So if you're going to run that offense, when you take chances down the field, when you do that play-action pass that we're talking about, it's pretty nice to have an elite quarterback, a first-rounder. They had that. And so you got to have a certain group to be able to do that and be successful. And, look, that's what Jimbo knows. That's what Jimbo did for a long time. That's what won him a national championship as a head coach and national championship as an OC. But I just think that, trying to pair that in today's college football is never going to work.
Talking to Jacob Hester here on TexAgs Radio. Jacob, I think it's too simple to say, well, because LSU lost Jaden Daniels and, Malik Neighbors, that you can necessarily say they're going to take a huge step back this year. When you look at their schedule, you look at what Garrett Nussmeier has done. Is it too simple to say that, or do you have big expectations for LSU this year? Do you think it could be one of those interesting years for Brian Kelly?
So you're losing, 3 first-rounders on one side of the ball. But, when you're at a place like LSU, and this being a place like A&M, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have really good players step in. Now, they might not be the same player. They might not be to the same caliber, but it might take 4 players to replace 3. But the expectation is not going to go away. One of the teams that I played on, 2006, I think we lost 4 first-rounders on that team. We lost 3 on offense, 1 on defense. The next year we went and won the national championship. Right, so it can be done. It's just going to be different guys if you've recruited the right way to step up. And LSU is banking on a couple of guys that they got out of the portal. Now, Kyron Lacy's been here a long time, but he was a portal player. C.J. Daniels coming over from Liberty, and then also a player that they recruited in Chris Hilton. So 3 receivers, in my opinion, to take the production of 2. And then at the quarterback position, you have a true unicorn. You have somebody that does not exist anymore, a quarterback that waited his turn, a quarterback that did not hit the transfer portal, a quarterback that when he's played, he's been really good. You go back, look at the SEC championship game against Georgia. Jaden Daniels gets hurt a couple of years ago. Nussmeier comes in, and that was a damn good Georgia team, and he actually had a lot of success in that game. He's come in against Arkansas. Max Johnson started the game. He's won the game. He had the bowl game against Wisconsin. So a lot of times Garrett Nussmeier has already been somewhere else, but he waited his turn. He's a veteran player, even though he doesn't have a lot of snaps. And so the offense is going to look completely different, but you still feel comfortable knowing Garrett Nussmeier, kind of did it in a different way, even though he's talented enough to be a starter somewhere else. And I think you have to kind of change your mindset, lean on the offensive line. You've got the best offensive line maybe in the country. You've got 2 first-round projected tackles right now. And so last year, you didn't have to be creative in the run game because you had Jaden Daniels. You were really just an inside zone team, and then he would take care of the rest. Now, if your strength is your offensive line, run power, run counter, run ISO, run duo, and run inside and outside zone, where last year you didn't have to do that. This year you'll need to do that, and I expect him to lean on that offensive front.
Talking to Jacob Hester. So what does a really good year do for Brian Kelly? What does an 8-4 year do for Brian Kelly?
I don't think it's a panic situation necessarily if they go 9-3. 8-4 is maybe a little bit of a different conversation. You got some people asking some questions because it is year number 3, we've talked about this before. LSU and Brian Kelly are married. He's not going anywhere. That contract says so. So he's going to be here. But if it is an 8-4 season, I think the conversation completely changes. People in Baton Rouge love Brian Kelly. But if you go 8-4, it doesn't matter who you are as the coach of LSU, there's going to be questions that are asked. I mean, we all know this. I mean, Coach O went 15-0. 2 years later, he had a 500 record, and he didn't even finish that season. That's just the expectation in a place like LSU. If you go 10-2, you make the college football playoffs. Obviously, fans are going to be happy, but that is the expectation. Like, you hear people around town, LSU in a 12-team playoff, kind of like we talk about with Penn State. We talk about now with Ole Miss. We talk about some of these programs that have kind of been on the outside of a 4-team playoff more times than not, although LSU made it the one time in 2019. That was the one time. But in a 12-team playoff now, kind of the expectation, I would say, hey, 8 out of 10 years, you better be in that 12-team playoff. And so if you do that, if you get that done, then everything's great. 9-3 is interesting. If you're 9-3 and you're right on the edge, and say you're 13th, 14th, 15th in the country, I'd be curious to see how that plays out with the fan base in Baton Rouge, considering that, year number 3, again, is the year that you kind of get graded the hardest.
Jacob, I got to ask about Texas. Were you annoyed by their presence at SEC Media Days, and do you see them having the year that most people expect?
So I've actually, one of my favorite events to cover, it might be the best thing that we do at Sirius XM, is spring meetings. And so actually going back 2 years ago, it was just the athletic directors from Texas and Oklahoma. And then this year we had, we had the coaches, men's and women's basketball and football coaches with the ADs. And so I kind of had already had the experience of welcoming Texas and Oklahoma to the league before media days. But it was kind of funny to kind of just see the circus that was there at media days, and a lot of different people that I haven't seen cover SEC media days were there for Texas in Oklahoma. And when you look at both teams, I think both teams are going to be really good. I actually almost feel bad for Oklahoma with their schedule. I mean, it is brutal down the stretch. You're talking about Ole Miss, Missouri, Alabama, LSU, and 3 of those 4 games are on the road. The SEC did them no favors in their schedule, certainly to finish the season. If they had a different schedule, I think the conversation would be louder for Oklahoma, but it's all going to Texas because I think Texas does have a lot of really nice pieces returning, and the schedule, it's not easy. I'm not saying that. You play in the Southeastern Conference, but, Michigan, you go up there week 2, they only return 35% of their production. They're going to be breaking in a new quarterback. I'd much rather get Michigan early than late. Some of their SEC games, their toughest ones, are at home in Austin. And so I think it's really that. I think it's an amalgamation of a couple of different things. I think it's who they have coming back. I think it's their schedule compared to a team like Oklahoma. They had a big injury with Baxter, the running back, going down, but Jaden Blue's somebody that I think is, a really, really good player. We'll see if he can handle being RB1 for a full season. So there's still questions about Texas, but I think a lot of us are buying into them coming into the league because you've got the most important position quarterback figured out, and your schedule's a little bit easier, more manageable than some of the other teams in the SEC.
So you brought up the schedule. Florida's schedule is ridiculous. Obviously, if not the hardest in the SEC, the hardest all of college football. They could actually be good with a bad record, right?
Oh, well, without question. I mean, Graham Mertz last year was really, really good. Now, no Ricky Pearsall, so who's he going to throw it to? Can Trey Wilson, as a true sophomore, be your go-to weapon? Montrell Johnson, the talented running back, who I think a lot of people were excited to see him be the true bell cow running back. ETN now at Georgia, he goes down in fall camp, going to be out multiple weeks. And so, where do you turn for production? That's going to be a big question. But I think they're going to be improved. I think you'll see a better team overall in the totality of the roster. But I don't know that that's going to matter. I mean, the SEC slate is brutal, but that's not the only thing that's going to be tough on their schedule. I mean, they're going to play the Florida State Championships. They're going to play Miami and UCF and Florida State. I mean, it's just an unforgiving schedule. And so, for Billy Napier, if you don't make a bowl game again, I mean, I know the Florida that I know, I mean, they were a pillar of college football when I was playing. I mean, they win it in 06. We win it in 07. They win it in 08. It felt like the winner of that game was going to win a national championship. But if you're talking about the Florida Gators having losing records 3 years in a row, 2 years in a row where you don't make a bowl game, that it doesn't matter how it looks. It doesn't matter what the play looks like. Those fans are going to want something different. And so I actually think that Billy Napier is going to have his team in a better spot. But with the schedule, it might not matter. And you might be looking at a 6-6 team, 5-7 maybe at worst. But if you're 6-6, you lose a bowl game again, you're 6-7. I just don't know that anybody can survive that, at a place like Florida.
Your answer may be Florida in this question, but just who do you think could be a spoiler to a team making the playoffs this year? One of those teams that are tweener teams. Maybe it's Florida, maybe South Carolina. Is there a team that you look at like, yeah, you got to watch out for them at the end of the season?
I think when you have that conversation, I think it's Kentucky. I think Kentucky is a team that, has been respectable for a long time now under Mark Stoops, and it's not that long ago that they've won, 10 games and had double-digit win seasons. And you go get Brock Vandegrift from Georgia, and they've got one of the better receiver rooms in the SEC. And that defense, their front seven, you can almost stack them up with anybody. And so they've got really good players in key positions. And I know in years past, hey, watch out for this team has kind of always been Kentucky, but I feel like that completely went out the window this year. But I'm like, hey, not so fast. Like, Mark Stoops is the most tenured coach in the SEC for a reason. I know a lot of people like to throw different stats about who he's beaten in the SEC, but you and I both know what that Kentucky job was before he takes that job over years ago. And I just think they have too much talent in positions where you have to have talent to be successful. I'm not calling for them to, win 10 games. I think they're probably an 8-4 team and maybe even a 7-5 team. But Kentucky will get somebody on their schedule that they shouldn't, and I think they could be a spoiler in the CFP race.
Do you think the ACC factors in this college football playoffs this year? Like, significant factor, I should say.
Sorry, I missed the first part.
The ACC, Florida State, Clemson, Miami. Yeah. Like, you see one of those teams, two of those teams, three. I mean, somebody's going to get in, but do you see more than one?
I don't see more than one right now. I think Florida State and Clemson obviously being your 1A and 1B, however you want to put that into the pecking order. I see a situation where you might have some spoilers in that league, keep a team out of that second team out of the playoffs. I look at an NC State, I look at an SMU, I look at a Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech, that's a sleeper team in the country for me. I mean, they basically returned everyone. They really played well down the stretch last year. Drone's coming back at quarterback, so they'll play spoiler. NC State's good enough to beat anybody in that league. And then SMU, Preston Stone at quarterback, and 11-3, won the American last year. They are more excited to be in the ACC than any team is to be in any conference. I mean, they literally are a walk-on to the conference. They're paying their own way into the conference, and they're fired up to be there. That's a sleeping giant. So it's not even that I think the ACC is necessarily going to be down. I just think you have three teams in NC State, Virginia Tech, and SMU that are going to kind of mess things up for the league to get two teams in. And so I would expect Florida State or Clemson to be that one team, but the other one gets kept out of the playoff because of one of those three teams.
Jacob, last thing for you. Big Ten perspective. Do you see it as Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State? Is Michigan the third team? Is Oregon potentially up too high? How do you see the Big Ten, like the top tier?
I think I like Oregon more than any team in the Big Ten. And I know it's a little bit of an unpopular pick because Ohio State got, Ohio State expectations, and they're not far behind. I mean, they would certainly be that team slotted in to number 2 for me. But, man, you look at what Oregon has, and Tez Johnson, that receiver, coming back. Evan Stewart, a player y'all know very well, going up there to play receiver. Dylan Gabriel going to be your quarterback after having so many moments at two different places in college football. I love Dan Lanning's mentality. He's kind of brought an SEC mentality to the West Coast, and now they're going to play in the Big Ten. I mean, I could go through their roster. I think there's so many things to like about the Oregon roster. Their toughest game is going to be a home game. You always like that when you look at the schedule. I still have, questions about what's the identity of Ohio State's offense going to be. They've been, a team that's had elite quarterback play, elite receiver play. This year, it looks like they're going to be more of a running team with a couple of backs. I don't know. I think I go Oregon 1. I think I go Ohio State 2. And look, I'm not putting Penn State at 3. Until Penn State proves me wrong, right? I have heard about how Penn State was going to do A, B, and C for like a decade now. They haven't done so. Drew Aller, quarterback, still has to grow for me, and so I don't have them number 3. I still would put the defending national champion, even though Michigan starts over at a lot of positions. They have got it figured out on the defensive front, the defensive backfield. They've got All-American players there, and if the offense can play catch up a little bit early in the season, then I think we're talking about a team that could push for a playoff spot towards the back end of those playoff spots. But yeah, I'm not buying into Penn State until I'm proven otherwise. They got to go show me that they can go win and beat one of the top tier teams in the Big Ten, not kind of beat up on the middle of the pack there.
Jacob, man, I kept you for too long. Thanks so much for your time, man. We'll do it again.
Absolutely, sounds good anytime. You have a good day.
You too. Jacob Hester there, Boss Firearms Hotline. Appreciate his time here on the program. We'll hit a break. We'll come back, a little Caitlin Torn there at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. But right now, FBS Appliance and their team of experts are here to help you with the appliances that make your house a home. They carry all the top brands. You know about Bosch, but beyond that, what they can do, they'll get you the right price. They'll get you the right appliance for your home, and their skilled technicians are second to none. And the beauty about what they can do, like I love this portion of it, because when we had our home constructed and we were having some figuring out what appliances we wanted to put, our washer and dryer, they had us do a video about the entrance of the house and then the corners that they would have to turn. And they actually had a plan when they came here, as opposed to figuring out and scratching up the walls. That's my favorite part of what they do. But there's customer service, the great people there. They have 8 showrooms across Texas. You can find them online at factorybuilderstores.com. They're the very best. Find them online, factorybuilderstores.com. Remember, 8 showrooms across the state of Texas. It is TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Aggies gather at the Angry Elephant. Caitlin Torres got some notes for us. Caitlin?
Yep, we have talked a lot of football today. It's been a while since we talked some basketball, and with their new non-conference schedule out, I would say this is maybe our toughest non-conference schedule I've seen in a while. We've got 5 teams from power conferences, and then we've got that Players Era festival in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, yep.
Yep, which is 6 teams that were all in the NCAA tournament last season. Going through it, we'll start with UCF on November 4th, and we've got A&M Commerce, Lamar, then Ohio State. We'll play Southern at home before that Players Era Festival in Las Vegas, Wake Forest, then Tech, Purdue, HCU, and ACU, all before we start the season.
Yeah, I'm looking at that, and I like the non-conference schedule. I mean, some of the teams you're playing have very high net ranking throughout the years, and Vegas is going to be a cool experience.
Yeah.
NIL opportunities, obviously, there. This could be a really good season for A&M. I was talking to some folks across the street yesterday just about how high expectations are for this year's team. Look, I know we had really high expectations last year, right? Like going into the season, we're thinking Sweet 16 type of team. I would say there's less questions entering this year. They just have to have a good start. To me, it's have a good start. And, another year of Henry Coleman, another year of Wade Taylor, and then obviously the new additions and the growth of Manny Obaseki. It's going to be a fun year. Caitlin?
Agree. I'm excited, and I think this is a perfect way to kick that off with a tough schedule to get us started, but I think that they can handle it.
All right, what else do you have for us?
Jesse Simonton did a little predicting of this inaugural 12. On three. Predicted the inaugural 12-team college football playoff field.
Give it to me.
All right, who do you think he put as the SEC champ?
The SEC champ, he is going to put the Georgia Bulldogs.
1 seed, Georgia. Second, we've got Ohio State, then Florida State, Utah, Texas, Oregon, Alabama, Ole Miss, Michigan, Notre Dame, Missouri, and Boise State as the Mountain West champ.
Boise State going in.
Yeah.
All right, so let me see if I see this. It's is there a list? Yeah. So the 1 seed Georgia, the 12 seed Boise State, Missouri as the at-large, Notre Dame. So in that scenario, Notre Dame, he probably has Notre Dame beating A&M, I'm assuming, unless that's their only loss of the year. Michigan getting in, that'd be huge. Having Texas at 5, that's interesting. Florida State, Utah, Texas, they would be the first at-large. That makes sense. Oregon, the first at-large. The second at-large, Alabama. So of the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 SEC teams getting in that tournament per Jesse Simonton. All right, time for one more, Caitlin.
Well, we also got some more injury news with C.J. Baxter going to be out this season after injuring his knee. He tore his LCL and his PCL in his right knee. He'll require a season-ending surgery. As a freshman, rushed for 659 yards and 5 touchdowns, and it occurred on the same day that him and Jaden Blue were named to the watch list for the Doak Walker Award, which recognizes college football's top running back. So he will be out this season.
2 of them on that team. So it looks like they'll be just fine, is what you're telling me.
Jaden Blue is next man up, but I don't know. He'll be out of there. I don't want to say that's good. I feel bad, but we won't have to face him.
All right, friends, your car wash tradition with the friendliest staff and personal touch is back. Aggieland's first green car wash is Aggieland Express. They have 2 great locations. You've got the original William D. Fitch. That's the one by my house I go to all the time in South College Station. The new location, 2528 Texas Avenue South in College Station across from the Planet Fitness. So obviously they have the washes that you want. Like you can do it yourself there. I do it. I like to because I have a certain style that I like to do. But you also have the full service option at the South Texas Avenue location. The newest full service wash in town. They've got all the options you can imagine. They'll take care of the cleaning, the drying, the vacuuming. Of course, Armor All interior, all completely under a covered patio so your car stays cool. And for a limited time, they're inviting you to try a full service option for half price. It's usually $40, but they're going to do it for $20 if you tell them that I, David Nuño, sent you by. We're going to give one free one away, though. That $40 value, we're going to give it away today. The first caller at 979-693-1150. you will get yourself a free car wash from the new location at Aggie Land Express Car Wash there on Texas Avenue South in College Station. Call us up 979-693-1150. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Radio. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It's time for a little Around College Football, brought to you by Milliken Reserve, a College Station community featuring homes, trails, farms, and wide open spaces. They have a mission to build a healthy community around nature. Take part in that Milliken Reserve community with a Conservancy membership. Learn more, millikenreserve.com. We go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We talk to Aaron Torres of Aaron Torres Online and Fox Sports Radio. AT, good morning, buddy.
David, good morning. I'm by an extra loud I'm walking, I guess, aside or along an extra loud highway today. So hopefully it's not too much of an issue for the audience. But hope you're doing well, man. We're 1 week closer. Hope everything's good with you.
Yeah, we're 1 week closer. I'll say this about you, Aaron. You are very conscientious. Like, anytime that there's, like, a moving train or, like, chaos in the background, you apologize afterwards. You'll send me a note like, hey, dude, I'm sorry. Do you need me to do something different? You're always very polite about it.
Wow. I mean, yeah, this was after you bashed me in front of Ryan Fowler and said that I could never run for mayor of College Station. It's nice of you to actually throw out a compliment every once in a while. That's very thoughtful of you. I appreciate that.
Aaron, I don't think I could run for mayor of College Station.
I mean, yeah, but you could pretend.
Why?
You could lie and say that, Torres would at least, he'd be in the running. He'd be in the short conversation.
No, there's no reason to lie. I just tell the truth.
Okay. All right. Well, good thing I don't have to lie about Aggie football anymore. I'm actually genuinely excited about it.
So were you lying in years past? Or I think you're like me, right? Like, you saw the reasons they could be really good over the years. And Aaron, I'll just say this, and I want to move on to this year, but you can't win football games if your quarterback's always hurt.
That's very true. Yeah, no, that's very true. And, I look at it from the perspective of, it becomes a system. At some point, something stops being a coincidence, right? And so you look at what happened over the last couple of years, and listen, I don't think there's a non-correlation. And listen, we all hope, obviously, Connor's going to be okay, but I don't think there's a non-correlation between the offensive line always being a weak spot and the quarterback always ending up hurt. And so, look, whatever. There's a lot of variables that have gone into the Aggies' successes and failures over the last couple of years. But I do think, and, obviously over the next couple of weeks, we're all going to be talking playoff, who's in, who's out, who's overrated, who's underrated. I don't think it's, a bold take of mine to sit there and say that so much for Texas A&M is going to be decided on Connor Wigman actually being able to play a full 12, 13, maybe beyond that game season this year.
Talking to Aaron Torres on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Aaron, did you take a look at the top 25 rankings that came out? And if so, did they get it right?
Yeah, I looked at them. A couple of things kind of stood out to me, David, is first of all, and I don't, I know you and Ryan Fowler have actually become genuine friends. I don't know where A&M fans have stood on the transition to Kalen DeBoer, but I know that there are many fan bases that have been telling me since mid-January, the dynasty's dead, DeBoer's in over his head, who's this guy from the Pacific Northwest? Oh, he was at Washington, he was at Sioux Falls, who is this guy? Then I look at the first preseason poll, they're number 5. Yep. And so, listen, I know part of it is it's the coach's poll, it's this, it's that, it's whatever. But I also do sit there and wonder, I don't know if it's because they're recruiting well or what the situation is, but I find it very interesting that I've been told for 6 months, 8 months, that they're that he's terrible, that he's overrated. And that was the first thing that stood out. There were other teams, I think, just trying to remember off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember. I think we talked about this last week. I think Miami's actually pretty good. I think they're actually maybe the favorite in the ACC. And so when I look at them, they were one at 19 that I thought was maybe a little bit undervalued. And there was a couple other that stand out. I can't remember all of them, but those were 2 or 3 that stood out, David.
Talking to Aaron Torres here on TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. The Notre Dame injury at offensive line, Charles Jagashaw. Look, I didn't know his name very well before this injury. It's become a big deal because that's who A&M plays week 1. Let's talk about it. They have a vulnerable offensive line. They lost some guys to the NFL. They lost a starting right tackle because of injury. You got A&M, who's going to eat on the defensive line. And it's Coach Elko kind of leading those troops with Jay Bateman. Just your thoughts on that game based on that storyline.
Well, I think it's just huge, big picture for Notre Dame because, it's not just a starting offensive lineman, but it was seen as an area that was at least a question, but also that's a place. Listen, O-line is important at all 130, whatever it is, Division I teams. But that's a place that has been an area of strength with them forever. And for them to, have a major issue just a few weeks before the season, when it was already a question mark to me, that felt really, really, really big to me. And so you added in with, and I know we talked about this a few weeks ago, but I've been a little bit more down on them coming into the season than most. And I just sit there and say, I don't think this is nothing. And I am curious how it affects not only the A&M game, but listen, I know their schedule is a little bit easier, but that's a team that obviously year 3 under Marcus Freeman, they got to start making moves. They got to start proving that he's the right guy for the job, all that. So I'm very intrigued what that means, certainly for week 1. But I think for Notre Dame, that's not, losing your starting running back and the next guy up. I think that's going to be a much bigger issue over the course of the season.
What do you think about this whole Harbaugh situation? Will the NFL do anything about it? Because apparently there's a precedent with Jim Tressel years back, and just the whole ordeal, the witch hunt, if you will. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I find it to be, largely a pretty boring topic from the perspective, David, that I think we all, mostly feel the same way. Now, I understand it's a little nuanced. This isn't this isn't just about cheeseburgers. It's about, basically flaunting the policies during the COVID dead period. I get all that. But I just think, listen, Michigan won their title last year fair and square. That is ultimately going to be Harbaugh's legacy. Maybe Ohio State fans will say, it got a little sketchy there at the end. I think most of us all watched the games. We know they were the best team in the last couple of years. And then, two, on top of it, he's in the NFL right now, is that he's not coming back to college. I think, he could go 0-17 the next 2 years, 3 years, and even if he was fired, I don't think he'd really have an ambition to come to college. So it just feels like a nothing story to me. I think the bigger picture, which is interesting, is that it does feel like the NCAA, I think, is punishing him specifically, and probably Michigan bigger picture, because he refuses to play by the rules, because he really largely refused to, not collaborate, but, work with them or whatever. And I think a lot of his assistant coaches were the same, and now they're all in the NFL. And so it's interesting because, it sounds bad for Harbaugh, but I don't really know what's going to happen with Michigan specifically. They've already said they're not taking away the national championship. They've already said, the NCAA made it pretty clear that they're not going to do anything to punish current players. So that probably takes a postseason ban off the table. That probably takes scholarship reductions off the table. So if all of that is off the table, Harbaugh coming back, you can accuse Harbaugh or whatever, suspend him for life. I just don't think that it ultimately matters.
Talking to Aaron Torres here on TexAgs Radio. Aaron, I know this about you. You're going to be the first one in attendance when Pitbull Stadium is named there at FIU and he performs. I know it. I can just feel it.
You're Mr. 305. You grew up a Canes fan. You're down there every other week for some sort of event. I love that story. Listen, one, it's the professionalization of college sports. And listen, everybody's trying to find ways. It's so funny, and I'm sure in your conversations, this comes up too. Doesn't matter if there's a house settlement for this much money or your collective has that much money. Everybody's looking for ways to generate revenue in this new world that we live in, and this new world that is constantly changing. And so, if that's an issue at even SEC schools, Big Ten schools, then you can imagine a place like Florida International, trying to raise money to kind of retain their best players and run a program at the highest levels of college sports. And so to me, I found it funny. And I'll say this too, is I think it's entertaining. I think, every time that a Florida International game is on ESPNU or maybe a Friday night ESPN or whatever, we're going to be reminded that this is one of the quirkiest naming rights deals that we've ever seen. But yeah, I love everything about it. I've been to a Pitbull concert. It was awesome, by the way. Don't know that I'll be going, I'm not going to be on the next plane down to Miami to make sure to be there for the ribbon cutting ceremony, but great story. And, listen, in these turbulent times where everybody's mad about everything, isn't that kind of the story that warms your heart a little bit, David Nuño? No. Admit it is.
It doesn't warm my heart at all. It doesn't, actually.
Why?
Because I'm not a Mr. 305 fan.
Liar. I don't believe it.
I promise. Bad Bunny Stadium, now that I might get down with. So let's just, you and I for a moment, think about a couple of college football programs and who could have a stadium. They're not going to rename Kyle Field for anybody, right? Maybe George Strait, but that's about it, right? Like That says
Johnny Football Field.
No,
Johnny
but
Football
I'm
Field
saying
is
musicians. Let's keep it to musicians. All right.
Okay.
So
I'm not a big music guy. That's the problem.
Oh, you don't know any
That's
musicians?
why these are great segments if you have like a smart cultured guest. I'm just not that person.
Actor.
I mean, we could, an actor.
USC, come on. You
I
got
mean,
Will
the Lone
Ferrell
Ranger,
Stadium.
right?
You could see that.
Chuck Norris Field at Chuck Norris walkway at Kyle Stadium. How about that? Like
Kyle Field.
the street leading in. What's that?
I like. You know why I like it? You probably know this. That's why you brought up Chuck Norris. He lives down the street.
Does he?
Yes.
See,
Walker,
and
Texas
you
Ranger.
Said I wasn't cultured.
The Delta Force.
Oh wait, I knew that.
Yeah.
I didn't know he lived in College Station. Texas is a big state.
Well,
a lot of state to range,
I don't know if he lives in College Station, but he lives down the road. I've been told that at least. I've never seen him. I hear he's in town all the time getting food. But yeah, Walker, Texas Ranger, Delta Force. What's your favorite Chuck Norris movie?
Isn't the Buc-ee's guy an Ag?
He is. Yeah, we could do Buc-ee's. Absolutely.
How much would it take to change just the mascot of A&M?
Okay, see, now we got to move on. You don't mess with Reveille.
Oh, come on.
You don't mess with Reveille, bro. All right? PETA will come for you.
What about
Aggies will come for you. All right?
I know. I'm sorry. I take that back. I mean, I'm not popular enough to win an election in College Station, but I tend to think Aggie fans like me for my honest, unbiased take. So yeah, that might have been a bridge too far.
100%. And you could win, student council. Like you could get voted for that.
Well, if I show up at a middle school, that might be a little weird. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, no, it's not like I'm not allowed within 150 feet of a Chuck E. Cheese or anything like that. I mean, I am, but that'd still be a little weird if I just showed up on the student ticket at College Station, West College Station Middle School or something like that. So
AT, I was meeting like across the street at A&M, not the CSISD and Bryan ISD.
Student election.
Yeah,
I guess.
You don't think they do class president over there?
Yeah.
They do class president.
That's true. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, I could win one in College Station, maybe at A&M. Yeah, that's fair. I think so. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think you're too old.
This conversation has gone off the rails, hasn't it?
It always does.
Started with Pitbull. We were breaking down Notre Dame depth charts, and then it went to Pitbull, and it's just been completely off the rails ever since then.
Buddy, we will talk to you in 2 weeks because I know you've got to go on a pilgrimage, next week.
I am. I'm going to be away. Last little trip, last little getaway before the season starts. So I'll see y'all in 2 weeks. And guess what? It's going to be week 0 at that point. And the takes, they'll be flying. Don't you worry. I'm ready. I'm excited. Can't wait for the season. Thanks for having me, David. Appreciate you.
All right, AT, fight the power. Thanks, buddy. Wow. He didn't respond to that. Time to talk a little heritage films. That's Chance McClain's company. They make documentary films about families. So, like, if your family's planning on going to Pitbull Field and you want to kind of document that journey of, of everything happening, because you're just a college football fan and you want Chance to be an eye in the sky, he can do that. He tells family stories, and those family stories can be a documentary about your dad, your grandfather, your family business, or cool events, cool vacations, cool holidays. Let him be an eye in the sky and tell that story. Get all the video, get all the interviews, get all the footage, get some pictures from the past, and put together a 2-hour documentary film that you're going to share with your family from generation to generation. No longer do you have to play the game of telephone. It's funny because, I forget like certain details when my parents tell me about their life growing up, and then I try to retell it like, actually, David, that's not exactly how it happened. It happened like this. This is the guy's name, yada, yada, yada. With a heritage film, which we did for my pops, you can have that done. It's the best film you can do. It's the kind of film that is going to be a gift not only for the person that you're honoring, but also for your family in the future, right? The family you haven't met yet, because they get to tell that story. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. Time to end the day with Double Daves. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls and a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggie Land since 1984. They have your favorite pizza. They have your favorite world-famous pepperoni rolls. They have reliable in-house delivery, and they bring piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on their way. So I think the current panel is going to be too young to answer this question, but I saw this trending on Twitter, and I'll just ask the group, and hopefully somebody smart on the YouTube or TexAgs or on the text line can answer this. There's a bracket, 1 through 16, of the funniest comedy of the 21st century. And it has Superbad as number 1. And I think Superbad is good. And some of the movies, I'm sure they're forgetting some of these, but like, for instance, to me, Anchorman is worthy of number 1 over Superbad. Am I wrong here? Anchorman for sure. Another one, The Hangover. Those first ones were great. Old School was great. Old School gets an 11 seed. The Hangover gets a 6 seed. Role Models gets 13th. Tropic Thunder 9th. And Kay, tell me you've watched some of these movies.
Well, yeah, I have. So I think that I'm cool with The Hangover over I'm cool with The Hangover being over Superbad, but I think that I would put Superbad over Anchorman personally.
I think you're dumb. The other guys,
fair enough.
Number 2? No. Like, here's one. It's a terrible movie that makes me laugh. Ted. Ted is 15 seed. I'm sure there's a movie we're forgetting. Caitlin?
I've never seen Superbad, so might not be able to comment on that, but I would put The Hangover or maybe the other guys at number 1.
Borat?
Those are pretty funny. Borat, that's a really funny movie.
That was a 3 seed.
Oh, I don't know if that's 3, but it is funny.
40-Year-Old Virgin, a 7 seed according to this.
Never seen that either.
Step Brothers, a 4 seed.
I feel like that's valid.
Tropic Thunder, you couldn't make that movie today. I'm just saying, you couldn't.
Most of these movies I don't think you could make today.
Horrible.
Borat, for sure, you could not make today.
This is from the Bracket Pod, by the way. Interesting question. I think they're missing out with some of these. All right. So, how about our thanks? You know, we do this at like the Oscars at the very end. I don't know if they do that at the Oscars. I think I just made that up. I want to thank Billy Liucci for coming to the studio. That was nice to get him here. It was a kind of a surprise. We had Olin Buchanan. We had John Brice, Notre Dame Insider. He did really good work. Pat Henry on a mobile. Aaron Torres. Jacob Hester. All great guests. Tomorrow on the show, Billy Liucci will be back in the saddle. But I also got a great treat for you. Elmo, Dave Elmendorf, Andrew Monaco, Will Johnson, all in studio tomorrow at 9 a.m. I texted them. They didn't respond. If they're listening, I expect you guys tomorrow at 9 a.m., guys. That's going to do it for TexAgs Radio on a Thursday. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll see you mañana.